Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We are conducting this meeting via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Please note this call is being recorded and will be uploaded to our website and/or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the council meeting. If you've submitted a comment request, we will call on you at the appropriate time. The chair may also openly ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic. At this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name. We ask that only one member of the public speak at a time. All persons will have the regularly allotted 10 minutes to speak as per our procedural bylaw. Everyone has the right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the MGA Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. Additionally, our voting procedure will be modified for our teleconference meetings. I will call for any councillor who is opposed to a motion to indicate verbally. For any motions with expressed opposition, we will conduct a roll call vote. We do have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
Are we going to have, through the chair, Ben Armstrong, I don't know, are we going to have some discussion on when we're going to be meeting in person again?
Sure, we can talk about that.
Thank you.
Hi, Scott here. I think we should have a discussion about Muirfield, probably in camera.
Okay. We will add meetings under 2.21, and we can discuss virtual versus in-person. We can add Muirfield under 6. We'll do that 6.3. We do have some ratification of meetings as well. We'll add that under 2.22. Anything else anybody needs to add or change?
I'll move we accept the agenda as amended.
Sorry, just Brian from administration. I'm going to add a Wheatland Housing Management Body request just under Councillor Kester's report. A request for support for the new lodge project.
Okay, we'll add that under 3.6. Councillor Armstrong, do you want to move with that amendment? Or
yep,
all
no,
of these?
That's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes from our regular council meeting, April 21st. Did anybody see any errors or omissions?
Wilson moves to approve the April 21st.
Councillor Wilson has moved. Any discussion? Motion is, is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We have the public hearing minutes from April 21st.
Councillor Eichert, I'll move the minutes.
Councillor Eichert has moved. Is there any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes from our special council meeting of April 24th. Bigger here, I'll move approved. Councillor Baker has moved. Is there any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move into our bylaw readings and public hearings. I move that the process for the Wheatland County Council meeting, as it pertains to the scheduled public hearings, will be as follows. Public hearing, first reading if required, then consideration for further readings of bylaw for those public hearings that have been closed. I further move that the above process will take place with the absence of resolutions to go into and out of council before and after each public hearing. All in favor? Well, is any councillor opposed? Sorry. Motion is carried. Open the public hearing for bylaw 2020-02. Does any member of the public have an objection to any councillor sitting on council for the public hearing? And I'll just remind anybody who's not speaking, if you can just mute your phone for clarity on the teleconference. And can administration verify that the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
We can confirm that, yes.
Thank you. And are there any written submissions?
There were 2 additional written submissions. Council should have received them. However, I'm going to ask permission to read those letters out once I've finished the presentation.
That would be great.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council. This is Megan Williams here to present application LU 2020-02 and bylaw 2020-02. This application starts on page 19 of the council package. The subject parcel is approximately 5 acres in size and is located within the West Highway 1 area structure plan on Durham Drive, southeast of intersection of Highway 1 and Range Road 270. The location plan can be found on page 24 of the council package. So the application is to redesignate the subject parcel from industrial general to commercial highway. This is being done in order to facilitate the development of a service station and 2 drive-through restaurants. So just to comment on the circulation, external agencies had no concerns. Alberta Transportation provided the roadside development permit they had issued for the development. Circulation to all county departments identified stormwater management and on-site servicing as 2 items for concern. And then, as stated previously, staff did receive 2 comments from adjacent landowners, which we will read out once I just finish the rest of the presentation. So you can see on the tentative development proposal on page 26 of the council package, stormwater management is an ongoing issue in the Origin Business Park. Due to the stormwater runoff restrictions here, many developers have had to build large stormwater ponds to accommodate the runoff caused by their development. This site is no different. The developer will need to submit a stormwater management plan with their development permit application that shows how they intend to manage the runoff on site. Another consideration is development phases. This development phases are the servicing restrictions. Currently, the Origin Business Park doesn't have water or wastewater servicing. Staff is undertaking a study to service the WASP regionally with water and wastewater. However, it is in the preliminary stages and the recommendation or direction is unknown at this time. The developer has proposed a cistern and septic tank. Those septic tanks are not permitted under Planning Policy 7.3, only unless it is the only feasible option. The proposal generally aligns with the strategies, objectives, and policies within the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, Regional Growth Management Strategy, Municipal Development Plan, and West Highway 1 Area Structure Plan. One of the policies in the WASP is speak to entering into a development agreement after second reading of a redesignation bylaw. This policy is for redesignations that are occurring tangentially with a subdivision application. Additionally, a development agreement can also be made as a condition of a development permit if necessary. So administration is recommending that Council approve bylaw 2020-02 as a proposal generally supports the strategies, objectives, and policies within the SSRP, RGMS, MDP, and the WASP, and the concerns raised by the county departments can be addressed through development permit conditions. Administration's recommendations can be found on the bottom of page 19 of the council package. And I'll just read out the 2 letters that I received. So the first one, the commenter says, our concerns are still the water issues, which we have been dealing with since the development was first proposed. All the things we said would happen have happened. The pond is not adequate and has not been since its inception. And now, with the addition of more impervious services, our question is, what will happen to the extra water flow created by paving the yard? During the melt this spring, we had to request a lowering of the west pond due to water seepage through Range Road 270. It was overfull, and the ditches were on the verge of running over. They are not made for water storage. Recent changes to Range Road 270 have made the water problem even worse. We've been pumping for 2 weeks, preparing our land for seeding. Most of this water did not come from our land, but flowed off of Origin Business Park. You have heard our story many times. And the second letter, they say, I oppose the change of zoning for this applicant. Their concerns are increased traffic with only one access intersection, safety concerns for current residents and the future customers, no access to proper septic system or water system. A rural business location can sustain small amounts of business traffic demands with septic systems and wells, but I'm concerned about the lack of controls and impact it could have on neighbors. This type of business should be located in Strathmore, Langdon, Chestermere, where they can have access to proper utilities. And third, no further effort has been made to support the current requirements to keep all runoff contained on the industrial park. How does the applicant/business park plan to mitigate these risks to eliminate the impact on neighbors, which was always promised in the development of the park? Those were the two letters that we received. And now administration is going to direct council's attention to page 9 with the 3 resolutions proposed. But that concludes our presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Is there anybody who would like to speak in support of the application?
Yes, Steve Grandy here, the applicant, and I have on the line with me Jeff Beaton, our engineer from Idea Group. Good morning, Council. Good to hear that you're all okay. I'm glad that we're finally here to this point and able to move forward. With respect to some of the concerns, I think you know that there are some things going on in the background. The far east storm pond, the large storm pond, is scheduled for construction this spring. So they're waiting for the frost to move out of the ground and mobilize their equipment. The second lift on the final lift on the pavement on the west side is also scheduled for this spring. In terms of the water and wastewater servicing, we have met with administration. A proposal has been prepared for creating an interim municipal solution so that there would be one large potable water tank and one large waste tank that all of the lots could connect into, bridging us, I guess, to that point where we can connect into an external system. If there are any questions, Jeff and I are both here for those.
Any questions for Mr. Grande? Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in support of the application? Is there anybody who would like to speak who has concerns or is opposed to the application? Administration, did we have any requests for comment during any of the public hearings?
When I asked to clarify with the 2 who submitted the letters, they said that they were happy just submitting the letters and having us read it out.
Perfect, thank you. And does the applicant have any final comments?
No.
Does staff have any final comments?
We do not.
Hearing no other comments, I will close the public hearing for bylaw 2020-02. Council can consider further readings.
Councillor Eichert, I move that council take on second reading of bylaw 2020-02.
Councillor Eichert has moved second reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? I'm not sure if I was muted. Second reading, the motion passed. Consideration for third reading.
Wilson moves to third reading.
Questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll now open the public hearing for bylaw 2020-16. Does any member of the public have any objection to any councillor sitting on council for the public hearing? And can administration verify that circulation was done in accordance with the MGA?
Yes, I can confirm that.
And are there any written submissions?
We have not received any written submissions.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, Council. It's Mike Zero with administration. Just opening up the road closure bylaw 2020-16. It's a bylaw for a closure of a portion of road allowance located adjacent to Northeast 7, 22, 26, west of the 4th. It is 1.16 acres. You can see on your agenda package there the location on page 33, just north and west of Carsland and Speargrass, just adjacent to the rail line there. On page 33, you can see a closer location map of the subject area. And then on page 34, you can see the actual details. So it's a small portion of road that was requested to be closed and consolidated back into the adjacent lands. We circulated it out to agencies and to adjacent landowners and received no written submissions. So basically from here, as a process with all road closures, if public hearing is closed, this would go off to the Minister of Transportation for approval prior to receiving second and third reading from Council. And that concludes my presentation. I'm able to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to speak in support of the application? Anybody with concerns? Any questions from Council?
Through the chair, just for information and clarification, Ben Armstrong here to Mike. Is there a reason why we didn't, when this application came forward, we didn't further go south and close the remainder of that to the south?
So we basically, through the chair, we basically follow the request that was made. The actual piece of road allowance that crosses the rail line there, you can see on page 34,
just south of where that south arrow is. That road allowance is actually closed. It was closed a number of years ago, that small portion crossing the rail line. That was a request from CP back in the day. So just as of right now, the adjacent landowner to the north has requested that remainder be closed. I think basically just to limit access onto that land. And I believe the landowner to the south is a separate landowner. So if we had to close the road to the south of that, we'd have to consult with the landowners around there and have them potentially take on or pay for some of that road allowance. So we haven't received a request for that.
Okay, so that's a different application. I just wondered if maybe it's not for discussion here, but maybe we should look into whether or not they want that portion of it closed also. The other landowners. Just a query. Thanks.
And just if I can speak on that through the chair, there are some separate titles to the north of that road allowance, south of the rail line. So closing that road portion may sever access to those parcels.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Any final comments from staff?
Nope, no more comments.
With that, we will close the public hearing for bylaw 2020-16, and we will continue with second and third reading after the Minister of Transportation has reviewed the application. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to agenda item 2.1.3, bylaw 2020-17, an update to the animal control bylaw, starting on page 36 of our council package.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Chris from Protective Services. Hope you can hear me.
You bet. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It gives me pleasure to present to you and Council bylaw 2020-17, which is update to the animal control bylaw to provide for licensing, regulation, of control of dogs and other animals within Wheatland County. The background for this application was that last year a ratepayer had made an application to have chickens within a hamlet as an emotional support animal. As we had no process beforehand, Council directed administration to come up with a process that would be done by administration rather than bringing them to Council. Currently, under the land use bylaw, livestock animals are not allowed to be harbored within hamlet boundaries. The changes to this bylaw, if approved, will allow for ratepayers to apply to harbor an emotional support animal if there is a need within a hamlet. The bylaw provides a clear guideline as what constitutes an emotional support animal. Conditions must be followed in the case of granting an emotional support animal permit. And one thing to make sure is clear and is that this only applies to hamlets when it comes to emotional support animals, because obviously livestock are allowed within other parts of the county. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank
No
you.
poem.
Any questions?
Does Tom have a poem for this one again?
Through the chair.
Sorry,
Ben
no
Armstrong.
poem.
I have a question. I'm just trying to find where, when I was looking at it the other day, I didn't write it down, but it's something to do with the description of the class when it's in a hamlet. There's something in there that makes it sound like if you've got the dogs should be removed out of that because they're licensed within the county, whether they're in a hamlet. I'm just trying to find it again. Dogs are licensed everywhere it's within the hamlet, whether it's emotional dog, whether it's a herd dog, whether it's a whatever. But the way it's written, it sounds like if it's an emotional support animal, it can't go in the hamlet because of the way it's written. I'm just a minute, I'll find it. think it's under the, within hamlets, upon reviewing, county to obtain a permit to keep an emotional support animal within a hamlet. So the individual may apply to the county to obtain a permit to keep an emotional support animal within a hamlet. I don't have a problem with that, but in here, that includes dogs. So the dog's are already licensed, whether it's emotional or whatever, it shouldn't really matter. I think we need to pull the dogs out of that specification for emotional support animals. Because the way it reads, oh, sorry guys. I'll just sign off here and see if I can find exactly what I'm talking about. But there is something about the way it's written that makes it sound like you can't take that emotional support animal into a hamlet unless it's recorded as emotional support. You can't have it in there, but dogs are licensed everywhere within the county, so they need to be pulled out of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean. Animal does include cats and dogs, but then the emotional support animal is just to provide a way to allow for livestock, like pot-bellied pigs or chickens or that type of thing. So I'm not sure if administration has any recommendation for kind of delineating that and making it very clear that cats and dogs do not require emotional support licensing, but just the regular, dogs just require the regular licensing.
Through there, when we had this vetted through legal, and they were the ones who provided the definition of animal to include dogs and emotional support animals, the reason we had to move it that way is more so because of the land use bylaw not allowing livestock animals. Madam Chair did mention a few minutes ago that emotional support animals tend to be things like pot-bellied pigs, chickens, and with this bylaw we don't. You're and absolutely correct that dogs do not have to be registered as an emotional support animal, and that's not what the intent of this is. The intent of this is to allow for the consideration for livestock type animals to be harbored within a hamlet as an emotional support animal.
Just clarification, please.
Oh.
So livestock animals, that's just for consideration. Staff may not allow certain animals, correct?
Correct.
I wonder, and I'm not sure if this would need to be reviewed by legal, but I wonder if on page 40 under O, emotional support animal definition, if you could say emotional support animal means an animal otherwise not permitted by the land use bylaw or something, kept for a domestic purpose that is determined by a mental health professional to provide therapeutic benefit to an individual suffering from a psychiatric, mental, or emotional disability. And then that would just delineate that it's not required for animals that are already permitted.
Yeah, I guess I understand. Yeah, that's right. And my concern is under 11 and 12, upon being satisfied that an individual requires the assistance of an emotional support animal within the hamlet, they may grant a permit allowing the individual to keep the animal within the described hamlet. So I understand that with all the other animals, but the dogs and cats are all over the place, and people have them. They have permits for them anyways. They shouldn't need to. Somebody in there says, well, that's an emotional support animal, and all of a sudden they have to have permission to have it in the hamlet. And the neighbor's got a dog running around, and they don't need a permission to have it in the hamlet. It's simply because of naming it an emotional support animal, they have to go through another licensing process. And that shouldn't be necessary with dogs and cats. They're already licensed. I don't care if it's an emotional support or a pet, doesn't matter to me. But for pot-bellied pig and a chicken and a cow or a horse, yeah, it does affect it, but I don't think it should affect the cats and dogs.
Through the chair, emotional support animals, I'm just curious if you're thinking, if it's the thought process is versus service dogs, not emotional support animals. Service dogs, with a change to a definition of service dogs to make sure that we differentiated between a service dog and an emotional support animal. Dogs for pets will always be licensed as were. Dogs as emotional support animals, of course, dogs are allowed to be licensed as pets. We wouldn't concern ourselves with that. The intent behind this bylaw and the way it's written is to govern animals other than dogs as emotional support animals.
I understand that, but I have a cousin that actually does have and it's called an emotional support animal, and it's a dog. He's got PTS from serving in services, and when I read this, I thought, okay, that sounds good, but now if he has to have that license to go under that aspect. He has to have a separate license to go into a hamlet, does he not? I
would say no, sir. Based on the fact that the dog's allowed to be licensed as is and allowed to be harbored in a hamlet, he would not require a separate license for this. This would only be in the case of someone that was requesting a chicken, a pot-bellied pig, or something of that like. And the reason,
as long as you guys understand it that way, I'm fine. Thanks.
Yeah, and the reason behind that, through the chair, was because the land use bylaw prohibits the harboring of livestock within hamlet boundaries, and legal suggested this route in order to give us a bypass on the land use bylaw, and it's a permit to for us to bypass the land use bylaw to allow people to hold these livestock animals within a hamlet.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Council's wishes for first reading.
Councillor Kester will move first reading.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Consideration for second reading.
Wilson moves second reading.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Permission for third and final reading. A motion for that, sorry.
Eichert will move third and final reading.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed?
Was that for third reading or for permission?
Permission. Any other questions or discussion?
That wasn't Tom's motion. Tom's motion was for third reading. He said third reading, so he'll have to amend it.
Sorry, for permission, I missed that word, sorry.
Sorry, I have Councillor Bigger as moving permission. Is that correct?
Sure. Councillor Bigger, you've moved permission to hold third reading?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Now,
Councillor Eichert will now move third reading.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification, you guys. Any questions or discussion? Is any counselor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to bylaw 2020-22, tax bylaw, tax penalty, interest, and monthly payment bylaw.
Good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. So on page 62 is the tax penalty, interest, and monthly payment bylaw. One point of clarification, I had made an error in preparing the report and the bylaw. It's a very minor error, so just the penalty dates. Administration's intention was to change the penalty date from July 1st to September 1st, and that was our only intended change. However, as the bylaw was prepared, the penalty date was moved from December 1st to November 30th, and we just wanted to leave that the same. So instead of having that penalty on November 30th, it would still remain on December 1st. So there would be no change in that. And I'll go kind of back to the bylaw just to kind of show you that part anyway. So the reason for this change came from a provincial directive that municipalities must offer a deferral of up to 6 months to a maximum of a minimum of September 30th for the education requisition portion of the bill, or the municipality had an option to change both municipal and education requisitions to offset that amount. So council came to the conclusion to have the due date for all the tax bills at the end of August, on August 31st. So on page 65 of the agenda, under point 2B, instead of having it being on the 30th day of November, a penalty of 5% will be added to the total taxes remaining unpaid. That would just be changed to on the first day of December of each year, a penalty of 5% will be added to the total taxes remaining unpaid. Besides that, minor change, the report is on page 62, and our intention is to change it back in 2021. We'll just revise the bylaw and bring it back out. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Council's wishes for first reading.
Bigger here, I'll move first reading of bylaw 2020-22.
Councillor Bigger has moved first reading. Any questions or discussion?
Just for clarification, that's as amended?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Bigger? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Second reading?
I'll move second reading as amended, Clausen.
Deputy Reeve Clausen has moved. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. A motion for permission for third reading.
Wilson moves permission to hold third and final reading.
Councillor Wilson has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. A motion for third reading.
Councillor Eichert moves third and final reading of bylaw 2020-22.
I'm not sure who was first. We'll say Councillor Eichert moved third and final reading. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to a discussion regarding meeting locations, whether we want to continue with teleconferencing or in-person meetings. Open the floor for discussion.
I brought it up because Ben Armstrong, our meeting at the end of the month for SAWA, our administrative officers looked into it, and we're booked into the Hall at Champion, and they have it set up. We're going to start meeting our board meetings together again under the new legislation. She's found a way that that's possible as long as we're under the 15 or whatever the number is. So we're going to do that at Champion at the end of the month. I just wondering why with council there's 7 of us, 4 or 5 others in there. Unless the public's involved, we're very seldom over that 15. So I was wondering, and there's lots of room in the chamber. I think it's time we got back together again. I'm getting tired of this isolation stuff. I mean, there's so much out there in the media and from the government, and I don't even know what to believe anymore. So I think it's time we start to get back to some normality. Just my idea.
Ben, you can just say it. You miss us, and it's okay that you miss us. I miss you too.
Well, I do. I miss the bullshit that's behind it. I miss the politics that's behind it and where they're trying to lead us. And I don't think we understand totally what's going on out there.
Just a question to administration. Have we done any measuring in council chambers to see if we can maintain the 2 meters of physical distancing that would be required?
Just trying from administration, we have not. However, we can undertake that. It's not very difficult. We can definitely put some markers on the floor and just ensure that everyone is separated. We probably can. Just to beg the question, though, if there are 4 to 5 staff, which is, I think, usually at minimum there would be 5 staff, 7 councils, so that's 12 people. If there's a member from the media, that's 1. I think one area we may encounter a difficulty, which administration can definitely look into, is public engagement. So if there is people coming in for a public hearing, so 12 people, including council, administration, maybe 1 person from the media. So now we're at 13. So realistically, that only gives another 2 people that could enter. We can definitely look into it. Definitely something that's been on.
That being said, they're calling in now. They can call in while we're having an in-person meeting as well.
Yeah, that's true. And that's something we could definitely look into. I think it's fairly simple to do. I believe we have the equipment to facilitate that as well. So, yeah, at the will of council.
And not only that, I would say there's more room in EC that we could hold a council meeting in as well, if there's not enough room to separate each councillor.
Like look at the EOC or something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just think it's look into it a little closer, because when I watch what's going on the media, and you watch what they're doing, they're trying, and I understand a lot of what they're trying to do, but some of it I don't understand. I don't get it. When you're out and about, and out here we're out and about quite a bit because we can. We're not in the urban center. We're not tied up in there. And I hate the idea of having X's on the floor for you to stand on. To me, that's absolutely ridiculous. If I can't figure out in my head what 2 feet or 3 feet is, and anyways, that's another story. But I watch what the media is doing, and some of what they're showing, and the social distancing isn't being adhered to by the people in the essential services. So I don't know what the big deal is about us having to be so paranoid about staying exactly 3 feet or 6 feet apart, because it's not happening in the workforce out there. Some places it is, other places it isn't. So to me, we're being overreactive to some of what's going on out there. That might just be me, but
I fully agree with Ben. I do know there's a couple of others that don't want to risk it, and I fully support that, but they should have the ability to call in as well. I mean, I know for me, it's really tough because my Wi-Fi is absolutely horrible, and so is my service out here. So it'd be easier to go into the county office for sure.
Yeah, I do think we also will just have to investigate. So my first comment would be, I think as municipal leaders, we do have to be leaders in following provincial regulations, including the public meeting procedure, COVID-19 suppression regulation by municipal affairs, and ministerial orders MSD 1920 and 2220. So I think we would have to look into the interplay of, because a lot of that was around, and I'm just looking at other orders right now, but I'm not seeing exactly where I need to look. Obviously, I didn't research this ahead of time, but just because it is a public meeting, we would have to look at how that works if we are holding the meeting non-virtually, and how that, how you coordinate kind of virtual public engagement or public participation with that. So I agree with Brian. That would be the main concern, is if we are at, say, 13 people, but the meeting has to be public, then we just have to figure out what municipal affairs allows under this new regulation for virtual public engagement. So if administration could reach out to municipal affairs, or I can have a better look through the regulations as well after. But we can definitely investigate. We would, I definitely, I would not agree to participate if we are not following the provincial regulation, and at least I think it's 6 feet or 2 meters apart, just because I do feel strongly that we need to be leaders in that regard. And I know we all have, there's lots of different thoughts on the necessity of those regulations, but they are in place. And I certainly don't want our council to be breaking the law in a council meeting. So we would have to be cautious with that. Open to any other comments.
And through the chair, I'm not saying that we should be breaking whatever the provincial law is, but I think unless we start pushing back a little bit, they're going to carry this on into infinity until there's absolutely no issue. But I think unless we start as a ground roots and start pushing back, saying, okay, guys, it's time to open the door. It's time to allow people back into the business world. It's time to get this thing on the road. They're going to carry this on way longer than it needs to be. So I guess my suggestion is that we just look into it and find out if there's any way we can do it. And if one does, then the other will. And yeah, there may be the odd time where somebody gets, but to me, that's no different than catching a cold. And I know I'll get a lot of flack for saying that, but when I see the numbers, it's anyways, enough of my rant.
Fully agree with that. I have a better chance of being killed by a cow today than I do dying of COVID. So fully agree with Ben. Thank you for bringing it up.
Councillor Kester here. When you look around the world, politicians are always under fire. There's the ones that acted too slow. There's examples. And they have horrific casualties because of their overrun medical. They can't cope. They're under fire for not acting soon enough. And then the countries that acted maybe in time and they flattened the curve, they're under fire for being too suppressive. It's a contest you can't win. Me personally, we can do. I don't think they'll throw anybody in jail for coming within the 2 meters, but me, I'm not, because of my family circumstances, I can't condone that. If it's a combination thereof, fine. I have terrible internet too, and I just rely on the phone. I think personally, this is a call of AHS and the government of Alberta. They're the ones with the experts and they're the ones calling for how to govern the general population, and that's their call. The counties, we are abide by it. We can talk to our MLAs, same as any other resident can talk to our MLAs and express their concern, but I'm still thinking this is AHS's call. We're just in the early stages. The curve maybe even isn't flattened yet or on the downward slope. And if it is, we're just in the early stages, and places that opened up prematurely have now locked down again because of another spike. When you look at the numbers, not even half of the population has caught it yet. So I'm thinking a little more patience.
Other councillors' perspectives or thoughts?
Hi, Clausen here. Just wanted to say that there's another part of this that has affected me is my work has had to, my business load has increased tremendously. I've had to lay off employees. So this teleconferencing actually allows me to participate. If I had to attend meetings right now, chances are I couldn't. Actually, I'm dual tasking at the moment. I'm driving down the road while I'm talking to you. And the last couple meetings has been the way it is because the meetings are in the morning. It allows me to participate. I fully have all the agenda in front of me. If needed, I'll pull over. But just there's other sides of it too. I'd much more meet in person for sure. But this allows me to do more this way, and I think it works really well. A few little glitches, but for the most part, it works pretty good. That's just my thoughts.
Councillor Eichert, I agree with Ben. I don't think we want to be reckless, but I think we have to show some leadership. That unfortunately there's 3 of us supposedly in the risk group, and I think it's up to us as individuals to assess whether we're willing to take that risk on or not. And I think, like I said, like Glenn is right, that it doesn't matter what we do if we're right or we're wrong. But I know the longer that we keep this thing shut down, and the people that are making the decisions, they're the ones that they're getting paychecks every day. They don't care, or they don't see the carnage that's happening out there. The longer this goes on, the cleanup mess that we'll have 6, 8 months, 18 months down the road is going to be horrendous. So pushing the envelope, I'm good for that. That's me, though.
Yeah, and just a reminder, I mean, we could see bars, restaurants, and lounges open within 2 weeks at 50% capacity, and we're not willing to meet. I mean, there's a relaunch strategy, and it is starting to happen. Why can't we be a part of it?
Councillor Bigger, we haven't heard from you yet.
I agree with Jason and Ben that I think we should start meeting. It's going to be opened up here soon anyway. I mean, AHS is what they're saying, is that they feel that they've flattened the curve enough that they're going to open up restaurants and bars. So I think that we should be able to go to a council meeting. Now, me personally, my dad isn't doing very well, so I may have to call in if I have to go up there. We have to take turns caring for him. But I mean, that can be a choice for each counselor. And it may not happen, but in case it did, we have that option.
So it sounds like we have some consensus to look into the logistics of it. So we'll have administration look into that this week, and then we can make a decision for our next council meeting, provided that it's possible in our building and in order with municipal affairs regulation, if everybody's happy with that.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I just needed to get that out on the floor. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, it was a good discussion to have. It is, I think, definitely time to be having that conversation, and we can figure out a way to do it safely.
Thank you, Ben.
We'll move to 2.22. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying that pants are going to have to go on for the next meeting, evidently.
Well,
Yes, please. Sorry, Jason, try again.
I just said, well, maybe not.
There's a song out there, Tom. It's called "I Don't Look Good Naked Anymore." You should listen to it.
That's a true song too, Ben. I really don't look good naked anymore.
Okay, I'm going to move us to 2.22. I had circulated a list of commitments that I was asking for council to consider ratifying, and then it was also brought to my attention that some councillors will need ratification for our April 1st meeting for budget review. Council's wishes.
Just so that we have it on the record, and don't have to discuss it and then do it. I'll put a motion on the floor that we ratify the payment of those expenses, including 1st of April, and let the discussion begin.
Donna here. Amber, you didn't have on your list the RMA resolutions. Was there a reason for that?
We can add that as well. I think I had, let me just find that date. We should probably ratify that as well. I didn't need it ratified because, oh yeah, I did. I think I separated that out. Let me just find the email that I sent. I think I thought we should do a half day for that. That's April 9th. I'm just finding the list, sorry.
Oh, I don't think it was April 9th.
Oh, you're right. Okay, that was a different RMA thing. That's correct. That was April 24th.
24th. Yeah.
So we did, I believe, already sorry, let me just go back to our minutes. Did we ratify our special council meeting? Sorry, I'm just going back. I'll just be 1 second. Okay. So we also would need to ratify. So on that day, April 24th, we had a special council meeting. And the RMA virtual resolution session. So we could ratify that as well. So I'll just review the dates for full transparency. So it would be a half day for the REIV on April 2nd for teleconferences. There's actually 5 half days that would all be half days for teleconferences with that regional group of municipalities and the WC Infinite Possibilities Regional Business Collaboration. So that would be the 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. And then I was requesting the 3rd. I had teleconferences with CMRB, AHS, Calgary Zone, RNP, just a half day for that. And then I did have a half day for an RMA member webinar and virtual meeting. Then we would also need April 1st for council budget review, just a half day. And Donna, you're correct. We should probably do April 24th. I can't remember the times, if it should be a half day for the special council meeting and RMA, or if that was a full day.
Yeah, I went from 2 o'clock to on, I think.
Yeah, and we also had the special council meeting at noon, I believe, for that as well. I had CMRB that morning.
Yeah.
So we could add that to the list that was circulated. Council's wishes, unless there's anything else I'm missing.
I'll move ratification of the following of Amber's
I think-
list of.
I think Councillor Armstrong did move.
Okay.
Councillor Armstrong, are you okay amending it to include?
Yes, I did move it, and I'll accept those as friendly amendments to the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Councillor Kester here.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. First off, I don't think a special council meeting needs ratification. It's a council meeting. I think all council meetings are just by nature being a council meeting. Personal thoughts. The other ones, this teleconference meeting with multiple regional municipalities. When I brought that up, it was because a ratepayer in Rosebud said they listened to a conference that originated in Drumheller, and it was lending support to their tourism industries. And I'd asked if council would find out how they did it, how they went about it, and is it something that the county wants to get involved with in getting a special message out to our ratepayers? I didn't mean at any time that we should be going like, these are weekly meetings. Council's never discussed what the benefit is. When I look in your reports, all 5 meetings have got the same first paragraph, the same, cut and pasted. 2 meetings, that's all there is. Another meeting added a sentence. And and one meeting even went so far as to say how grateful or how happy you were that a development permit was issued. I'm sure everybody's happy about a development. So I'm really wondering the value for me to the county of these teleconference meetings with regional municipalities. And likewise with Wheatland Infinite Possibilities. I thought that started out as staff reaching out to any of the businesses around the county. As council, we've never discussed the merits of attending that or Reeve attending that. I know you're asking now, but I really wonder about it, what the value is of an added counselor attending these meetings. So I'm not in favor of teleconference meetings, and I'm not in favor of the Infinite Possibilities meetings until I see a benefit. Yes?
I can tell you one thing that did come out of the WC. There would have been 2 of them. So we have the Carol, I forget her name. She's from Labor, Agriculture. And what came out of those meetings has actually been promoted very well now through agriculture labor, because agriculture has a shortage of labor. So in fact, it was my suggestion that they get something on their website where agriculture related jobs to be listed separately. And I went on the website last night. It's up and running. There's 64 already job listings throughout the province. I think WC Infinite is a very, very important conference. We've accomplished a lot. We have now our MP is on there, the MLAs are on there, plus businesses. It relates to agriculture, it relates to everything, tourism, it relates to all the industries. I think that I find very big value in that, actually. And actually, there was an outcome come from it. Like I was a little bit surprised, actually, how fast they worked on getting that website going, and how well it's moving ahead, and what a benefit it is.
Problem I see is this is coming up monthly now, these extra meetings. They weren't part of the organizational. I realize at the organizational time it wasn't there. That being said, I'm also, when we're doing our budget meetings, we've not hired seasonable staff. We've cut things. We've cut funding to different committees, Handy Bus being one of them. And I was looking over the wages, and I know this email come out. It's not in the council package. Another email come out about, I won't say berating, but to come out that how much work is being going on and all the things that the Reeve does, and defending her pay. So council, according to hers, I didn't check them out, increased the pay of the Reeve by $5,023, counting the RSP to $8,523. That should have come to, over the previous Reeve's pay, to $79,730. Reeve got $85,221. So that's $14,000 more than the previous Reeve, $5,490 more than council agreed to, and we keep adding on more things. I think that is getting to me to be extreme. That's a 23% increase in pay. We've never increased anybody's pay 23% in 1 year of the county. I know how much work there is. There's no more work there for the Reeve than when there was previous Reeves. We do always the same thing. We've never been authorized to do anything extra. I know there are other things that come up, but same in this time of COVID, there are some things that just don't get done either. There's no presentations out in public. There's no public speeches. So that isn't there. So it has to be a thing of give and take. But I'm thinking with the cuts we've been going through and the increase in salaries, it's just getting, I'm not going to be accused of taking away from somebody and giving it to one of us. No, I can't support it. It's nice that you listen, yeah, but it's part of the AHS Calgary zones. I listen to them whenever I can. I'm trying to farm too, and cell phones, I'm not as lucky as driving down the highway. I can't listen in all my fields. But I listen. I don't once consider that a council. There is no benefit to a council. We have a teleconference meeting for a council meeting. That's what we're there for, to have a council meeting to make decisions for the betterment of the county. Listening to other teleconference meetings when there is no support, nothing coming out for the county, I just have a hard time and I can't support it. That's me. Sorry I had to say it, but that's...
May I just have a quick comment, Wilson, before I let Amber respond to that? I would just like to remind all of council, council also got a very large increase to their wages. And speaking on, I know my personal opinion and perhaps others, I don't think we've had a Reeve in a long time put the effort in that Amber is putting in. She is not only listening, she is putting in very educated and important discussion items for people all around the province. She is respected by multiple people within our field of councillors, MLAs, MPs, and I think she is worth every dime that the ratification is asking for. The people of Wheatland County is lucky to have a Reeve like that is so into protecting and standing up for those people in her area. I don't think any of them would blink an eye at what the salary is. That's my opinion. To be quite honest, I'm tired of the pettiness that Glenn Kester is showing. So, yeah, I'm quite tired of it, to be quite honest. And it's just, when everybody else agrees, it's just getting very tiring.
I'm sorry you're tired of it, Jason.
I go by council resolution. Sorry. I go by council resolution. That was a council resolution. I got the audited financial statements in front of me and I see exactly what's going on. Now you want to change it, then change it, make a motion that whatever you want the Reeve to have it. Be open and front and transparent about it. Include everything in council meetings. None of these emails and meetings before the meetings. And further to that, what I'm really upset about, another issue, is this letter to the Premier on the golf courses. A ratepayer sends a letter off to a councillor asking about a golf course. That's good. Brings it up, sends it out, an email. We got 4 councillors that say, immediately write a letter to the Premier. I wrote in, very seldom do I answer emails because I don't think it's proper to have a meeting before the meeting. But a letter was directed to be wrote and sent off. The CAO said he would write the letter and he would send it off after a council resolution at the next meeting. The next meeting come and went, and I thought, well, nobody's interested in the meeting anymore, or the letter. A couple days later, the letter's sent off. Not even discussed in council. No motion. Letter sent out on county letterhead to the Premier of the province. In one of these teleconference meetings, and one of the comments or what happened when talking to MP Martin Shields is that Wheatland County Council is concerned about the golf courses. That's untrue. It wasn't even talked about in council. There was 4 councillors concerned. Yeah, you could have said 4 councillors are concerned, but not Wheatland County Council. It wasn't part of the meeting. I got elected to be open, transparent. This is not transparent. Conducting meetings before the meetings, conducting them on emails now. And I'll actually do an actions on an email. I find it bad. And I can't be party of it. I'm not saying that Amber does not research and do her homework. That's not the question. It's about being transparent. It's a benefit for Wheatland County. There's lots of people out there going through tremendous hardship, as Ben has said. Everybody's had to amend their personal life, their business life. They're all coping. Some people just won't get a second chance. So don't tell me you're tired of my pettiness. I'm a counselor and I'm entitled to an opinion. I don't need to be called old. I don't need to be berated on Facebook for the way I vote on agricultural policies. I don't sit back and call you petty. I don't demand apologies. Nobody seems to care. So don't call me petty. It's my opinion. I'm one of 7. I've been elected, and I have a job to do. I have a conscience. You don't have to listen to me, but it is my right. It is my duty to express my thoughts. Don't do it again.
I'm open to other councillor comments, and I do have a response. So a couple of comments. We can have some council discussion about the odd occasion that we do conduct business where we will sort of straw poll an issue that's fairly timely because of the timing of our council meetings. and I believe this has happened historically as well. Occasionally we do have an issue that comes up that is timely or time sensitive, and we have determined consensus via email and then ratified a decision during a council meeting. My apologies that the ratification of the golf course letter was not brought to a council meeting. If we had council consensus, we could add it to our agenda today. That's my fault that was missed. I apologize. But there was certainly council direction that the majority of council supported sending the letter. I fully recognize that some councillors had some concerns with sending it, myself included, but I met the will of council, and it was the majority of council that directed so. So we can ratify that. That was my error. In terms of the email that I sent, I can read it. I had hoped to do it just with some discretion amongst council, but I'm happy to share it publicly. I said, "Good afternoon, council. My favorite time of every month, coming to council for the awkward discussion about my timesheet. I understand some on council have an issue with paying me per diems and may believe my attendance at teleconferences and multiple other event meetings over the last year and a half are part of my duties as Reeve, but I'm not clear if that's consensus. I will be the first to admit that much of what I do is by choice. When I commit to doing something, I don't do it halfway. However, I believe it's right that I be compensated fairly and appropriately without repeated debate. I hope there's recognition of both my integrity in reporting and compensation expectation and my commitment to this council and our county. Of course, I have many duties as Reeve, above and beyond council. I review and authorize all payments, CAO timesheets, represent council in audit report inquiry, and safety audit interviews. I take phone calls not just for my division, but from ratepayers across the county. I write speeches and attend events. I respond to media inquiries. I believe I follow council direction in liaising with other municipalities and frequently collaborate with other mayors and Reeves. I do the best I can to keep track of initiatives and council priorities. I endeavor to be an ambassador of Wheatland County. Now, in terms of compensation, we contracted the Winford Group to do a compensation review last year around this time. They noted that council pay was slightly behind peer organizations, 7.5% behind. Deputy Reeves pay was 2.1% behind, and that the Reeves pay was significantly behind, 16.9%. And that was based on 12 per diems being paid a month. And this, I can provide the background on this. That is their language, not mine. They recommended the following increases in 2019. They recommended this was their recommendation in 2019, that Reeve pay be increased by, and I'm going to approximate just for brevity, $14,000-ish a year and a $4,200 RSP matching program for a total of an $18,600 increase recommended. They did say that that might want to be considered to be done over 2 years. Council pay of $4,842 a year and $3,200 in RSP matching program for a total of $8,000 in increase. Wheatland County Council approved the following increase: Reeve pay of $5,000, $5,023, and $3,500 in RSP matching program for a total increase of $8,500, which I freely recognize as a significant increase. Council pay was increased by $2,926 and a $3,500 RSP matching program, which was a $6,426 increase. So the Reeve pay was about, just looking, maybe $2,100 more than the council increase, leaving the Reeve position under market by 12.3% and council under market by 3%. Remembering the RSP program was largely put in place to account for changes in taxability of our pay. It was a recommendation by their group. Please keep these numbers in mind when my increase is referenced as massive or whatever verbiage is used in council every month when I find myself in the tiresome position of defending my work for the county. I'm certainly not asking for an increase in pay at this time. I'm asking for respectful consideration when ratifying my timesheet and per diems. And I certainly always want this to be transparent, and that's why I bring certain things to council for consideration for ratification. Currently, every Thursday, I've been joining 2 teleconferences, one with 12 municipalities in our region and one with our Wheatland business community, as well as teleconferencing with provincial and federal representatives, RMA and telephone town halls put on by different cabinet ministers. Not only do I commit time to these weekly, but I spend time preparing Wheatland updates to share as well as time following up, either liaising connections or ideas that may be implemented, and reporting on each commitment, many of which I would not be doing if I were not serving as REEV. These are obviously conducted virtually due to the fact that we are in a global pandemic and there are public health measures in place limiting in-person meetings. But when those regulations are not in place, I attend meetings and commitments in person. I will reiterate, I would not choose to do all these things if I wasn't representing this council as REEV. And I said I was fine having this discussion in public council if that was the preference. There was some indication through email that there was a preference to have this discussion sort of just as a council and privately, but I'm fine being transparent about it. And I'm also fine at council directing me in which commitments you would like me to engage in. If council is not seeing value in them, then I certainly don't need to continue in them. I'm not doing it for any other reason than to serve this council. So I'm certainly open to council direction. In terms of teleconferences, I certainly don't ask for ratification of all of them. I did, for the first time I listed some of my, I think the commitments that I didn't request ratification for, I did list on my timesheet as no charge. And that did include for me our budget review, a seniors and housing ministry town hall with that minister, telephone town hall with municipal affairs, a premier's town hall, a teleconference with our MLA, a teleconference with our MP, another telephone town hall, and as well, I represented the county at the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce AGM, where they officially voted on the name change. I was asked to attend that. So you're absolutely right. There are definitely less public events that I'm attending or doing speeches at or that type of thing, but the Chamber AGM would be a good example of something that I attended on my own time just because I was happy to represent the county. And a lot of those were sort of under 2-ish hours, 1 to 2 hour commitments. Where I'm asking for ratification is more where I'm moving into sort of 3 to 4 hours of my day. Those I did as half days, or sometimes I have, 8 to 12 hours, and that's where I'm asking for full day consideration of ratification. I'm happy to take council's direction, and my priority is always to serve this council. So
let there be no confusion. I'm not questioning your work. I'm just questioning some of the value. If an MLA, a premier, MP contacts Wheatland County and wants to have a meeting, we drop everything and we go have that meeting. We'll drive up to Edmonton to have that meeting. We can't do that now. It's a phone call, teleconference. Those are definitely a given. But to have a town hall meeting where virtually the whole province is invited is not the same. That's where I'm coming from. And also I'm coming from, council voted on the wages, and I'm saying we're over that. I'm not saying give anything of it back, but we keep adding on. And I can't add on anymore. Can't be in favor of it. Sorry. You want more, then bring it to a council meeting and we'll do whatever council says. I go by votes in council, not by emails and feelings.
It's Councillor Eicher here.
A little bit of, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Eicher.
I am 100% fine with your ratifications because I run the numbers in my head, and we are in a special time here. We've got meetings covering stuff that we never ever dreamed that we were going to be covering. So I'm assuming I did the numbers in my head, so they're not 100% right. But the fact that we get you for a deal because we didn't give you the full what you actually require on the full increase. The numbers you have to make up for your time for ratification, I've got no problems with because you have to be paid for your time because you're underpaid otherwise. So that's why I'm good with these ratifications that we're actually getting a deal with the money that we're spending on the extras still doesn't come up to the money we'd be paying you if we paid you what you actually should be getting paid on a yearly salary.
Other council comments?
Did we get a motion on ratifications? Was that Ben?
Yeah, I believe Councillor Armstrong has a motion on the floor.
You're gonna have to do a roll call anyways, Amber. Might as well start with that.
Sure, sounds good. Hearing no further discussion. And hearing
I'm going to ask for a recorded vote.
Certainly. We'll do a recorded vote and we'll do it via roll call. I will vote in favor. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
In favor.
Councillor Wilson.
In favor.
Councillor Bigger.
In favor.
Councillor Ike.
In favor.
Councillor Kester.
Opposed.
Councillor Armstrong.
Favor.
Thank you. Sorry, just getting back to my agenda.
Question of order. Reeve, you didn't vote.
I did. I said I was in favor initially.
Sorry.
I hesitate to vote because of a pecuniary interest, if you will, but then all of council has pecuniary interest because some of the dates affect all of council. So that is why I did vote. I'm not sure if I need further clarity on that, but yeah. So just so you know some of my thought process. We will move to 3.1, starting on page 70 of the council package. Reeves report. I have tried to provide an overview of commitments that I had this month. As mentioned, some things are fairly consistent. The weekly call with the town of Drumheller, there are parts of that that are consistent each week. It is essentially the same. I think 12 or 13 municipalities that participate. We do have often federal and provincial, well, actually every week we have federal and provincial representation that bring updates and can answer questions for that. And as well, the municipalities all roundtable and share what some of our challenges have been, issues that have come up. There's usually 2 or 3 questions that we each discuss, sort of how we're handling different aspects of the pandemic. I do, if I note something that we either aren't doing or an idea that I think might be good for the county, I will follow that up with our CAO and get his input on that. Much of what is discussed is being done by our municipality, but I know personally I find some value in just hearing what issues municipalities in the context of the pandemic are experiencing and how they're handling them. I do look to council. If you're not finding value in my attendance at that, I can certainly let the group know that we're not going to continue our participation, or if we want to take turns or something. I know I did set it up for Councillor Kester to attend. I'm not sure he's had the opportunity yet. And I know Councillor Armstrong has been on some of those as well from the Drumheller solid waste perspective. That there was a lot of issues with that, particularly initially when they were determining how to handle that. So we do that weekly. You'll also see the WC Infinite Possibility Regional Business call on there weekly. We do have a mix there, as Councillor Bigger did discuss we have kind of looped in our MP as well as our MLAs, invited them to join us, and we have had some representation from them the last couple of weeks. It's a really good forum for us to discuss with our businesses the challenges that they're experiencing, what we're doing as a council. Obviously, everybody is happy about the development permit deferral option, but both of those calls were just a good way to share that information. And then my hope would be that the businesses that are on the call maybe share that information within their networks, and maybe we can encourage or incentivize some development in the county during this challenging time. There are frequent town halls put on by different ministries. They're typically very helpful. The provincial cabinet ministers typically share updates from their ministries in terms of pandemic response. And then the vast majority of the time is typically fielding calls. And again, that's a good opportunity to hear what different municipalities are experiencing, to clarify interpretation of different orders, to talk about timelines in terms of when the government's going to be getting information to us on things that are being rolled out and that type of thing. I am pleased to say that our Community Futures Wild Rose Board has hired a new general manager. Ms. Chantal Heish was our business analyst, and she has assumed the role of general manager. We're very excited about that. The Alberta Health Services Calgary Zone does do regular community conversations as well, where they share kind of the dynamic response to the pandemic. And again, they do field responses on those calls. MP Shields has also been hosting regular teleconferences where he shares the federal response to the pandemic and how that intersects for municipalities, our egg producers, our businesses. It's a very good time for sharing information, and as well, different municipalities ask questions, and occasionally we don't do it every week, but we do roundtable just on what our municipal responses have been. I'll maybe let Donna speak more to the webinar with John Schaller, but excuse me, that was a phenomenal webinar that he put on, some really good information. It was mainly aimed at businesses, but there were some things that we could consider as a municipality to help us be somewhat of a destination and help on the side of tourism and that kind of thing. RMA did provide a webinar on running effective virtual meetings for mayors, reeves, and CAOs. Again, that had valuable information, and also a Q&A where we could ask questions regarding processes and procedures during this time. The RMA member virtual meeting was a good opportunity for RMA to update on what they've been doing and discussions that they've been having with both the province, some of the new legislation that's come through. Both our federal and our provincial government representatives have been doing an excellent job at keeping in touch with us and updating on initiatives at their levels of government, and as well reaching out to see what issues that we are experiencing. We did hold our Marigold Library meeting in AGM, and you will see as addendums to my report some of the reports that Marigold provides and creates for our municipalities that outlines each of our libraries that serve Wheatland County ratepayers, and those are attached under my report. Something to note with our Calgary Metropolitan Region Board meeting. One thing that is important is that the growth consultant has identified that we will likely not meet our deadline due to impacts of the COVID pandemic. And so they are adapting the work plan, and they did suggest that we not request an extension at this time, that we wait until June to do that. just so that they can monitor the situation and give greater certainty to projected completion dates. So it's important that council is aware of that. I think most of us were on the RMA resolution virtual session. Several resolutions were passed. I think there was just one that was withdrawn and one that did not pass. And I already referenced it. I was pleased to virtually attend the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce, and the name has officially been changed to include Wheatland. And I think that's just exciting, and it makes it very obvious that they are extending their efforts to really include and involve our Wheatland County businesses. And I'm happy to answer any questions. If there's no questions, I would move that my report be accepted as presented. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to Deputy Reeves' report.
Thank you. My report's in the package. If there's any questions, please ask. If not, I will move my report as presented.
Are there any questions for Deputy Reeves-Clausen? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to Division 3 councillor report. Oh, sorry, Division 1 councillor report.
Sorry, I didn't have anything there because I did not, I was unable to attend the Handy Bus meeting due to planning and priorities. So it was just the planning priorities, special council meeting, everything you guys have down for your council meetings. Other than that, I didn't attend any of my own committees because conflict. So no updates.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Wilson? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Division 3.
Thank you. Yeah, my report is in the package. For our Chamber of Commerce, at the beginning of April, we reviewed our upcoming events that would be needed to postpone. It was decided to go ahead with the AGM virtually, which did happen. John Schaller, yeah, his webinar is amazing, and as you guys all heard his through the Canadian Badlands Conference, he has very good suggestions, and he really is very motivative of how to change your way of thinking and think out of the box. I know that there's a gentleman down in Raymond, I've forgotten his name. He is actually going down to be able to teach the course up here, which through Canadian Badlands, and that will be a very big plus for us in our region. Kind of the workshop that he's going to be able to put operators through and council or whoever wants that kind of information, and it'll be more accessible to us in Alberta. Canadian Badlands, we are having quite a few meetings. We're planning on wanting to rebrand, refocus. So there's a few meetings going through about that. Economic development, we're having some, what pertains to me is a sign in Carsland that businesses that, especially the ones that are closed, haven't got the interest of putting their signage up there yet, but looking forward to getting, now that it's opening up a bit, maybe getting some more interest. And that's about it. So I'll just move my report as read.
Any questions? Just a comment, Donna, I want to commend you for the work that you're doing with the Chamber and Canadian Badlands and our Economic Development Board. I think now more than ever, that work is critical for our business support and tourism. And so thank you for all of your efforts on that. We appreciate it. No, thank you. Is any councillor opposed to approving Division 3 report? Motion is carried. Division 4?
Yes, the report is in front of you. I just want to make one correction. On April 23rd, I was at the Wheatland Housing Management Board meeting. I somehow didn't add that, but I think everything else has been fully discussed here, so I will move my report.
Any questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Division 6? Division 6 report? Councillor Kester, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me now?
You bet.
Hello? Okay, sorry, I thought I pushed the button. It's just my report's on the server. Yesterday or the day before, May 5th, no, that's today. On Sunday, they sent out an email from Rosebud Theatre. That's the whole hamlet of Rosebud, pretty well. That's their income for the year. They've had to cancel their shows, of course, and they are trying virtual things, but they are living totally on donations now. So anybody that feels if they donate today, there has been a patron, I'm thinking, doesn't say who, that will double or match your contribution up to $10,000. So yeah, if you feel a generous spirit, please look up the website of Rosebud Theatre and donate today. As far as other meetings, we had a WRC meeting. We had a budget meeting, and we set the water rates for the year at $3.88. But it hasn't been decided when the rates will apply. Nobody on the board answered the email. I'm thinking it'll be January 1st, but next time we get together, we'll certainly clarify that. The labor contract for WRC that budget has not been done. The villages and the county will go over what the value is for them and if we want to continue that. And that discussion is yet to happen. One other thing. On Sunday night, I believe it happened, probably, maybe it was Saturday night, not sure. My favorite hole you've kept hearing me about on Township Road 263, the Rocky Ford Access Road, is now very easy to see. The road's been closed and the hole is significant. I haven't heard of anybody driving in the hole or causing the hole. I don't know if it's just a natural cave-in. There's holes big enough to swallow a small car. So we were, not that I've heard any, we were very lucky nobody got hurt there. There is an email that Brian sent out this morning. I think I received it recently from the Wheatland Housing Management Body. I'd like that to be part of my report too. After listening to Honorable Minister here and listening to the Premier on his open houses, looking for shovel-ready projects, Wheatland Housing Management Body decided that we should try and pursue and get a shovel-ready project going. So the process is, of course, we can't have the piece of land that was preferable and not that proper looking into it has happened. So right now there are board members out there and surveyors, all done pro bono, measuring and looking at possible building sites in Strathmore. Strathmore has another building site that hasn't been officially offered up, but it's in close to where they're building their new office now. That site and other sites are still being assessed. So that's part of it. The other part is that we are decided to look for a building that might fit or 80% functional for us. We haven't come to any determination on that. It's still being investigated. With that, we would approach the architect that owns those plans and ask them, probably hire them on the prospectus of the building we've seen. That would save us costs for sure. And it would, and listening to the Premier and the Minister of Transportation, Honorable Rick McIver, there are circumstances we can go around their usual process for hiring architects and getting contract work done. So the town of Strathmore is putting together this shovel-ready project, and part of it is that need a letter of support from all municipalities that are involved. This letter of support is not asking for money right now. As I've said before, the board does not know how much money we need. Part of our plan original was $50 million build, 40 from the province, 10 from the municipalities. We have a motion from council that they will match Strathmore. We have various other motions, but this is another letter of support for a shovel-ready project. There could be, I talked to the Honorable Martin Shields, our MP, there might be some CMHC funding, nothing definite. There has been talk. It could be a P3. Usually the country or the Canada, the feds look for a third. We got some money for water pipeline phase 2, and it was third from the feds and 6% from municipalities, and the province made up the remainder. So that was that P3. I don't know if there's a chance for P3 coming, but in past experience, it does not mean a third of money. It just means a third partners. So I'll ask for support, and I'll make a motion that Wheatland County provide a letter of support for this shovel-ready project. And if there's any questions, I'll endeavor to answer them. And with that, I'll move my report.
We have two motions on the floor.
Two motions. We'll do the one motion first, and then we'll do my approval second, okay? Well, I think we should do the motion for the letter of support first.
Sure.
Just a question.
Discussion.
Just a question, Glenn. They want us to support it being shovel ready, but there is no idea on, I guess not just an idea, I mean, the actual cost of the project or the piece of land or any plans. Like, to me, that doesn't sound shovel ready.
We're working on the shovel ready. We have plans. We have the concept plan. Okay, it depends on the building we find. If we don't find an appropriate building, then we don't find an architect, and then it's not shovel ready. There are some new buildings out there that have size that we were looking at. If the architect is willing to modify them to meet our needs, then we have something to go by.
But
if
as
we can't find that, as of now, no. I'm asking for the concept. I'm not asking for money, or the board's not asking for money. They're asking to support the concept.
Support of it being a shovel-ready project, but it's not a shovel-ready project at the moment, so I don't know how we can support that.
It's not of the moment, but it's being worked on. So to be a shovel-ready project, there are a number of parameters, little checks on the boxes that have to happen. One is the letter of support. Another one is the land. Another one is the plans. I don't have the checkbox in front. The town of Strathmore is going to include it in their shovel-ready projects, and they are working on that concept. So this is just one of the letters, one of the boxes that needs checking off. It doesn't mean that we're building it. Doesn't mean that the board can come after the county for the $50 million. We're looking for the 50, okay? Yeah.
I understand that. I'm just curious. You guys, I know you guys were hoping to get planning money in the previous budget, the provincial budget, and that didn't happen. Would you not need that money before it would be a shovel-ready project as well?
No, I don't think so. Not if the planning money is to hire the architect. If we go the other way around, in these extenuating times we live in, and find the building and get that architect, we don't need the planning money. And when we had that conference call with Minister here, I forget the date, I'd asked the question on the lodge and the planning money. And we did not get all that favorable response because the cabinet is looking for shovel ready. She encouraged us to do shovel ready. She encouraged us to find a project that's already been built and share the plans. It's commonplace with the school boards. They're probably hoping maybe with the new lodges, their province has committed over the years 1,000 beds a year. Maybe there could be some money saving there to adhere to her wishes, her comments. That's the way the board has decided to go, to look for a shovel-ready project. Much the same as if you buy a new truck, you decide, I want that truck. But right now, the way the municipalities work, we have to do a study which truck we want. We'll eliminate the study and go right to that fancy blue truck is what we want. So kind of the same. We were just looking for a letter of support. It complements all the other letters of support the counties give and the other municipalities have given. It's just that this one is a shovel-ready project. And of course,
through the chair, Ben Armstrong, the way I read this letter is basically a letter of support in principle. There's no funding request in the letter. It's just a letter of support to move forward. And if that's
exactly right.
Meant for, then I have no issue with it.
You're exactly right. We're not asking for money. This isn't a commitment. This is complements the minister adheres request that day. We are all listening to her.
Yeah, no, I fully accept the letter in principle, but I mean, as a counselor and knowing a few MLAs myself, they're looking, I mean, I'm not going to be in favor of this until I see plans as well, because I can't support it being a shovel-ready project, even in principle, if it's not. I fully support the idea. And if the board comes back in another 2 weeks with, and I know it's timely, but comes back with plans in the best in the world that until I see that, it's not a shovel-ready project, and I can't support even in principle, no matter the cost or whatever.
I don't believe this letter is asking you to support a definite project, like as in a blue truck. We're asking you for support that we move ahead for a shovel-ready project.
I understand that, and I can't support it until I see it's a shovel-ready project.
Okay.
Glenn, I have no problem with the letter. Donna Bigger here. But it for sure the plans are still coming back to council, right?
Oh yeah, whatever we build, it'll definitely come back. The board hasn't even seen it yet.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know. I'm not part of the committee that's looking for the new building. Okay. We have a list of new builds out there that are less than 5 years old. They will be looking at the plans and accommodating whatever and see if there's anything close to. And then it also hinges on the architect if they're willing to come and work for us under our idea of completion. So there are variables out there, but this in no way ties the county or any municipality to anything. It's a letter of support that this is what we're moving towards.
Yeah, I find it, sorry.
Through the chair, I don't think this is an issue. It's similar to what, if I understand it right, it's similar to what Sawa has been going through for the last few years. County has a letter of support on the books, supporting where Sawa is going, but we haven't made the commitment yet. That is still to come, but to move to the position that we're in now, we had to have that letter of support to move forward. I think that's all that is being asked here, is that are we as a municipality in favor of this project? If we're in favor of it, then we give them a letter of support in principle, and then let them take the next steps that they have to. And when they bring back the funding model back, then council has a chance to review that funding model, and if there's issues there, then they can back away from it. That's how I'm looking at it.
Thanks, Ben.
It's Aikert here. I think it's a brilliant idea to use existing blueprints if we can find something that we can build off of. I think it'll be cost effective. I think it's the way we should be going forward to. And I've got no problem. I like the request for support. The shovel-ready aspect of it is a little worrisome to me, because as I understood what the Premier said, that he was talking stuff that was ready to be in the ground in, like, shovels digging in 3 to 4 months. And I think it's probably optimistic to believe that all the engineering, all the various studies need to be done that can be done in that time. But I'm 100% behind this letter.
Hi, Scott here. Tom took the words out of my mouth. I'm really glad that they're looking at existing buildings, and I think that's cost savings are huge that way. I believe I had said that before, but I just don't want anybody to rush into anything. Really want to make sure, because anything rushed usually doesn't work well. And then I would like to see what the check boxes are for shovel-ready projects. I don't know what parameters are, if it's feasible for that. But I'm sure the board can figure that out as well. But just for my own curiosity's sake, like to see how much is left to do. Kind of like homesteads. I mean, there was 17 or something that they never could achieve, and it was way too high. I'm not comparing the two, but I'm just trying to think similar ideas. You know, if it's too much, is it achievable? But that's my only concerns.
So just in response to that, the provincial government has not issued explicit criteria for shovel-ready projects at this point. The key elements that they discuss when reminding us to submit our requests are that they are going to create jobs. That's essentially their number one criteria. Number two is that they will contribute. They're looking for infrastructure that will contribute to our relaunch strategy as a province. The timelines that I've heard tossed around, they vary, but sort of essentially it's that construction could start within this construction season. I think in one meeting I heard 2 to 4 weeks. So the key things that they've asked us to consider are things that do not have environmental complexities that might require studies, things like that. So just providing that as information.
I was counting that as the checkbox. We're doing little surveys to see how much employment it will create to build, survey to do how much employment after the build. I believe environmental, architect, we have an architect that is so far donated his time, not an architect, land surveyor has donated his time generously for measuring. I believe the towns are doing phase 1 environmental studies. The town has really thrown their support behind this project. So being it's a joint municipal partnership, the board thought a letter of support from all the municipalities and partners, which would include the Lions Club of Strathmore and the Strathmore Masons and the Wheatland Area Hospice, all provide a letter of support for this project. I'm sorry if I misled anybody that there was a pre-checkbox, but what Amber said is right. And for me, those are all them little statements are part of a checkbox that have to be filled out to make your project look good. So this is just to help our project look good. If we don't get the provincial nod, no matter what, the project is dead. I don't think the county or the municipalities want to undertake building a new lodge without any help from the provincial government. We're there to help, not to provide. That makes sense.
So is that your motion, Glenn? Is it going forward?
My motion is just to provide a letter of support. Doesn't tie us into any money. Doesn't tie us into helping out and providing any of the support. Just recognize this letter of support is to accommodate or show our support for a shovel-ready project. If we don't get the timelines done on time, if we can't get in the ground this year, and then I guess it's all for naught. But if we find the building, I believe we could probably be on the ground by late summer. The piece of land that we're really looking at, I don't know if there's anything ever been on it. We'll find out when the phase 1 is done. It's a prime piece of land. That's that part I'm really excited about. However, we got to get provincial approval. And with that comes is the next steps. No sense worrying about the next steps until we get this step done.
Any other questions or discussion?
So I'm just going to take your word. You think that we will be in the ground by the end of the summer if this goes right?
I am certainly optimistic.
Okay.
It all hinges on us finding a building. And the board talked about if the building is 80% of our needs currently as it stands, we figured would be enough. If we have that architect in with us, it would be up to him to change that plan to accommodate future builds, additions, whatever the board wants. But we're currently looking at roughly around an 80% match. We thought would be a good starting point. We find that we get the environmentals done, lot is serviced, if that's the lot we go with, all the lots are serviced for that matter, that surveyor's been going to. Some of them probably need a more in-depth environmental study, but that's be up to the board to decide which lot they want. Board's optimistic. So if we find the building, if we don't find the building, well, yeah, the thing's a wash then.
Well, I hope you find a building, because if you think you can do it in this summer, that's great.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If there's no other discussion, I'll call the question. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll make sure that letter goes out. Glenn, just before you move your report, I just have one question. For your CMRB governance meeting, it was indicated at our last board meeting that there had been unanimous committee approval of the conflict of interest policy. Can you just update me on what was discussed?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Sure.
On what policy?
The conflict of interest policy. It was one I had referenced.
There was not much discussion on it. I think it just went back to there was some added on. There was not much talk on it. It should have been in your part of your board package.
Yeah, it hasn't come back to us yet because I think you met just quickly, like just a short time before our last board meeting. It will probably come to our next one. Just one of the urban mayors had referenced the governance committee discussion, saying that there was unanimous support. It contains that clause around outside activities. I had shared with the council some concerns that the rural municipalities had raised. So the clause reads, members must avoid participating in outside activities that conflict with the interests and work of the CMRB. Members will discuss any potential conflicts with the chair and or the chief officer. Were you guys able to iron that out?
It's much the same. I don't think it changed a heck of a lot. I'll have to go back and look at it, but I wasn't concerned about it at all. There was other talk going on. But the conflict of interest, I think, was just for clarification. There was a little talk on it, but nothing much.
Okay, because the rural municipalities at the board level had expressed concern about how that could be interpreted in regards to our work, our advocacy work regarding like what's in our municipal best interest and for our autonomy, and like some of our work towards asking the minister to look at the mandate of the board and membership. And so I just wasn't sure if you were able to express that at the governance committee. I can certainly express it again at the board, but the board had sent it back to the governance committee to try and work on that. I outlined it in my February report.
I'll see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It's just always better when I know kind of what's happened at committee. One of the urban mayors just referenced it, that basically all the municipalities had, I believe he said, unanimous support for that. And he was using it in reference to some of our concerns with the board.
Oh boy. Oh my God. I'll have to say the way we do our packages is a lot nicer with some attachments on the side to go through the agenda and click on the spot.
think my board ones usually do, I think servicing and land use does as well, but I don't know that I've seen a governance. I might have had a governance one from that one I attended.
Okay, conflict of interest, cropping, page 12. A clear conflict helps board staff appropriate decisions with ethical. It was originally was in there because of the pecuniary interest. My thoughts at the governance meetings for pecuniary interest, conflict of interest, conduct of board members, as individual counselors, like we all are on that. We all have our council policies to adhere to. And I didn't want anything in this thing to contradict anybody's policies. I didn't think we really needed one. So there was one part, if it says the yellow here, I highlighted the one, it says this policy is not intended to impact the ability of members to discharge their duties, officials elected to represent their municipalities. That's maybe the only thing that's been added.
Can you just read that one more time?
This policy is not intended to impact the ability of members to discharge their duties as official elected to represent their municipalities.
Okay. I'll raise my concerns at the board level. I just wasn't sure if they had been addressed because we had sent it back to governance. Really the only clause that there was kind of debate at the board level was regarding those outside activities, and it's solely because I could easily see it being interpreted that some of our advocacy efforts could be seen as contravening that, and I don't want to be contravening like one of our policies because of an interpretation. So if governance didn't kind of clear that up, we'll try and do it at the board level. I'll see what comes in our next board package. I'll have a look at it. I just was hoping to know some of the context from your perspective at the governance meeting. So
outside activities, members, staff contracts must avoid participating in outside activities that conflict with the interests and work of CMRB. Member discuss any potential conflicts with the chair or chief officer. That part could have been added. That's in italics.
Well, that was in there. That's where the concern was. So that was in the original draft, and that's what was kind of sent back to governance for consideration to see if it could be edited somehow so that if rural members are, for example, doing the advocacy work that we're doing with the lobby firm, I think that could be interpreted as participating in outside activities that conflict with the interests of the CMRB is what we were concerned with. So I'll see when it comes to the board what we can do with it.
Okay. Now that's I can't remember actually talking about that.
Okay.
About this advocacy work. But again, it's all on phone and I am where I am.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Also one other thing, I'll put a plug in for the phones. This meeting was on Zoom, I believe. And it just dropped on me.
Yeah, I think they used GoToMeeting.
GoToMeeting, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a go-to. And it just drops off for me. And
you do have the option.
I could be off for 5 minutes. I think this one was just, I'm not sure anymore. I can look up in my agenda again.
They usually do try and include a call-in option. I know if I'm having troubles the one day with our CMRB meeting, I use the phone, like my landline, just to ensure a better connection. But I know not everybody has landlines, but thankfully you and I do. So you could check in with Shelley and see if you can do
There
a
is
telephone
a number
call.
here. There is
Yeah.
a number here, but time I got into it, I use headphones, and it's easier to use my other thing, just because that's the way it is. No, it wasn't that big of a deal, I don't think. I just thought to myself, maybe they'll kick us out. Anyway, no, that's my recollection anyway.
Okay.
Sorry if I didn't answer your question.
No, that's all right. It always comes back to the board for more fun, so I'll look forward to that. I think, do you want to just maybe restate your motion for your report?
I'll move my report.
Any further questions or discussion?
Yeah, Glenn, just as a comment, I'm going to, through the Chamber, Economic Development, or Canadian Badlands, we'll connect with Rosebud Theatre. There's some really good suggestions on keeping customers in the loop, and if they're going to be closed for the following year, it's something that they're probably going to need to do. So just letting you know that I'll be connecting with them.
Okay, thanks. Also,
that's a great
Rosebud,
idea, Donna.
Also, Rosebud, what do they call it?
The Rosebud Country Market?
No.
Oh, sorry.
The theater is putting together, it's a living room. Anyway, they have a couple actors doing music, singing, and you can do a live thing on Facebook, and then you can support them by donations. It's they do a weekly show on Facebook.
The home stage tour. It's very cool.
That's what it's called. That's what it's
called.
Yeah. So they are doing that, but if you have other ideas for them, I'm sure they'd be very happy to hear them. Thanks, Donna.
And Donna, they're on our WC Infinite call too, so we can kind of loop them in that way as well. I know Paul's been on the last several, and actually a couple of representatives from there have been on, so that's a great idea. Any other questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Did I miss something? I hung up the wrong button. Instead of mute, I just hung up.
I just said representatives from Rosebud Theatre are on our WC Infinite calls as well. So
okay.
Another good way to loop them in. So, and I definitely reiterate what Glenn said. Check out the home stage tour. It's very cool on social media. So is any councillor opposed to the motion to approve Division 6 councillor report? Hearing none, motion is carried. Division 7, turning our attention to page 145 of our council package.
Yeah, thank you. My report's on there. Like I said, there's lots of phone conferences, conference calls, and our Drumheller solid waste. We've had some issues down there, but Tammy's handling it quite proficiently. We've because of the COVID and some of the fears of the staff, some of them have used it to garner extra funding out of the government. Some of them are actually have some fears from it. Anyway, she's gone through a number of staff, but she's got some new staff on board, and seems like they're all working good. The other thing with that, just to carry on a little further, the municipal partners meeting that Drumheller has initiated, I was on the first one or two. I've backed away from that because I'm working with Tammy and the operations side of it, and I don't think that's where that needs to be dealt with. So any questions that come through there, which weren't coming through there on the first couple of meetings, phone calls anyways. So knowing that Reeve Link is on the call with them, I'm backed away from those, and I'm sure that anything that comes up around the solid waste will come through her to me. I would rather deal with it on an operational issue with Tammy and the staff down there rather than taking it through that process. So I've backed away from that. I'm quite confident that Amber can handle that any questions that come through, and Tammy and I are on the phone a couple of times a week. In fact, she's got a call in to me right now, so I'll be calling her as soon as we're finished here. So I've stepped away from that, so there's no charge for me on those conference calls. SEWA, we're also looking at what we were talking about earlier as shovel ready. When that the premier come out and talked about that, we're pushing like hell to try and get something along that line going. Hopefully, when we have our board meeting at the end of the month, there's be some good news with that. Though, waiting to see what that brings about. Other than that, it's just business as usual. So, if there's no questions, I'll move my report.
Any questions for Councillor Armstrong? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to page 146 of our council package, Chief Administrative Officer report.
Good morning, Council. So just Brian from administration. So the CAO report is on page 146. One of the bigger projects that we've kind of been working on this month is working with the compost operator and just ensuring that the removal process is going forward at the compost site north of Strathmore. So just to note, just because they do remove material usually every day, sometimes they do stop with materials depending on the wind. They did not remove any materials yesterday just due to the wind. There was gusts of about 60 kilometers an hour. So the numbers in the report are a little bit behind. So as of today, they've removed 2,650 metric tons of legacy material and 640 metric tons of lime. There has been complaints from residents. So I'd say they kind of just flared up last week. So I received between 4 and 5 complaints. Did respond to all of them and have documented the complaints. We do have that camera just north of the facility. So on that camera, there is information on that hard drive that lasts for about 4 weeks. So the process of that camera is that it will just auto record over itself. So I have been up to the site at the start of April and just May 1st, actually just kind of reviewing the progress that it's going. It is moving forward. We are going to get that camera and maybe do the hard drive off the camera, get it replaced, and maybe do like a time-lapse photo just to kind of show the progress on that removal itself. The road, Range Road 250, just south of that facility, it is in rough shape. We are working with our grader operators and just trying to smooth it out for residents and just making sure that that process moves forward. It is difficult because of the just thawing in 250, just with that heavy truck traffic going over it. So we're working the best that we can to kind of expedite that and have no delays. In fire services, we have hired 2 new staff. So we had 2 interviews for the 2 applicants that were very, very qualified. So those 2 positions have been hired, and we've communicated that out to the chiefs. 1 position starting in mid-May and 1 in early June. Besides that, the operating capital budgets were a big one. Want to express thanks to all the staff that worked on that. It was definitely a big project, and just in general, the staff have been doing an awesome job for the county. So, and that's all departments do: Public Works, ASB, admin. Everyone's really been stepping up to the plate during these difficult times. So, I just want to express that as well. And just also to note, the annual tax bills are being mailed out. They should be at the post office tomorrow with all of the changes made with the due dates. And we look forward to the feedback on our new tax insert. So we definitely reformatted it this year. There was somewhat of an informal committee that worked on it. They definitely worked really hard. We're proud of the work that they did too. It definitely looks a lot more modern and I think a lot easier to read, and it kind of breaks out the portions that we collect for the province versus portions that we use for the municipality, which is a very important piece to note. And besides that, I don't have very much else, and I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions for CAO Henderson?
Hi, Brian Scott here. I know there was a number of complaints on the weekend. Just wondering if there was any communication with GFL about process change or something, because it seems that the odor was consistent. So different than when they were just opening up the piles. It was a steady odor all weekend. So just wondering if they changed what they did or things like that.
Yeah, so we haven't received much clarification. GFL has mentioned that it's kind of just the standard operations odor suppression on piles. I'm not sure if as they dig further into the piles, it gets more odorous. Definitely have received a lot of complaints. The 4 or 5 complaints, I believe 4 out of the 5 of them live south of the facility. So within that southeast kind of quadrant. So it's difficult for sure. I don't think that the removal process would ever come without any complaints, which is unfortunate too. And we just continue to try to work with them. We've been documenting all the complaints that come in. Some residents have expressed concerns, and all their complaints have just asked that they email the GFL removal at wheatlandcounty.ca email, as long as with the other email that they're supposed to email with GFL. That was a part of the removal plan. As for any general changes, I'm not certain. I can definitely follow up, but I think GFL's pretty confident that they've been doing the same kind of activities on site. So that's kind of all I have.
Yeah, so they've been operating for a while, and it's been like no complaints whatsoever. Then all of a sudden, in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, it's gone up, more so in the last few days. And then you see their daily report shows like a 1 or a 2 odor. That's what it doesn't seem that's reflective of what's actually happening there from their site, and I want to clarify that. Because people have noticed an odor, but it is getting stronger. I've witnessed it myself. I've witnessed it actually blow all the way over by the Alta here one night when the winds change. My biggest concern is it's not so much as when they're pulling it out now, it's a consistent odor. And that's a big concern, whether maybe they're composting more of this legacy material or composting some of it. I just like some openness from them to us about what's going on and maybe a plan of attack to mitigate some of those concerns. Thank you.
A question to Brian and maybe Scott. When you're talking about that extra, seems like there's more odor coming. Is that could that be accounted to the fact that they're getting deep enough into the pile or towards the end of the pile that they're getting into the really, really rotten stuff and it's causing a little more odor? I know if you're cleaning out a feedlot, the odor at the first is not the same as the odor at the last.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, Ben. Their daily reports aren't showing that anything's changing though. Like their odor levels are the same, the 1 or a 2. I don't think I've ever seen higher than a 2, and it is changing on site. So yeah, if they were reporting that they had more at site, basically tell us what they're doing. So and what are they going to do to mitigate that? That's all I need to know.
Yes, Brian from administration. I could definitely reach out to Mr. King and find out. He's the project lead or project supervisor. One person I had chatted with late last week, person in the industry, he had mentioned that he believes that the stuff on top of the pile, it has oxygen has hit that, so the odor level would most likely be reduced. However, the deeper you get into the pile, it hasn't been exposed to oxygen that much. So when you pull that stuff out and oxygen hits it, it becomes more odorous. So that very well could be it. I'll reach out to GFL and find out if they have an additional explanation or something like that. And I can get back to council on that one as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there's no other questions, a motion to accept The CAO report is information.
So moved. Glenn.
Thanks, Councillor Kester. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.1.2, 2020 Fall Central District 2 RMA General Meeting. The report starting on page 148.
Yes, Council. So this is something that was going to be brought forward to Council in March. Just with the circumstances, just never kind of made it back to Council. So what we're trying to do is we're still trying to plan in the event that this Fall Central District 2 RMA conference does occur in October. We do recognize that it may not occur by October 2nd. However, we are just looking for Council's guidance on the facility to choose, perhaps a first and second option, and then we can work out details with RMA. If it is in person, if it is a virtual meeting, we're kind of at the mercy of the situation at this point, but just in case there is a meeting, we just want to make sure that we have our ducks lined in a row and have a facility, a first facility and a second facility, just in case we do meet. If not, we'll kind of proceed other ways. Thank you.
Council's thoughts?
Councillor Eichert here. I think we could do one of the halls. I think the fact that there's no catering and all that kind of stuff, I know we've all got enough contacts that we could get these things catered. That includes tear up and or set up and tear down and all that kind of stuff. So I'm leading. I would lean towards keeping it in the county itself. And I absolutely love Cheadle Hall because it's close. So that's me.
Also, just another point of clarification from administration. The list of the 5 locations that we have on this list, that's not a full list of every facility that is available. That is just options that were previously presented by Council, I believe, either informally, but those are just ones that we have looked into. We can definitely look into others too. We're just looking for Council direction. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, Carsland is an option too.
I mean, Clooney's an option. I'd rather Clooney on there than Strathmore Travelodge because it's in our area.
Does anybody know if their on-site accommodations is used very much? Or are we all, it's all central, right? It's all driving distance.
I believe I heard when it was near Rocky Mountain House that there were a few people that I chatted with that went the night before because of distance. I'm just going to pull up a map of District 2. I think we're central.
No, we're on the edge of District 2.
We're on very.
I think like Gerald Roads and provincial backup for RMA, they usually stay overnight. And maybe some of the further away ones and Mountain View and that confer with the staff before the meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, we are a little bit on the southern edge. East-west, we're quite central, but we're definitely on the southern end.
Hi, Scott here. I'd prefer to have it out in the county somewhere, and then if people so choose, they can rent a hotel in Strathmore or Drumheller or whatever they prefer. We can just not give them those options. I'd prefer La Alta or even one of the golf courses here if they had enough capacity in their rooms. It's all kind of up in the air, but definitely out in the county somewhere is way preferred. Thank you.
Rosebud does have the advantage of some on-site accommodations. They have some bed and breakfasts and the inn there.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Rosebud personally.
It would help support their economy rate at the moment a little bit too. So
We could maybe even, I don't know about the procurement, but talk to the theater about potentially catering.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I see that Rocking R was contacted. There is another venue down in Cooley Creek Farms, which has a caterer. I won't mention any names, but they will be able to host.
Jason, just out of curiosity, is there any accommodations nearby? I'm genuinely trying to think.
No, no, Strathmore would be the nearest.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Just so I would say Rosebud number 1, Cheadle number 2 for me.
Cheadle has the advantage of being proximal to lots of accommodations in Strathmore too. I would support your idea, Donna. I like supporting Rosebud if we could, and then I think Cheadle would be a good second location. I'd love to show up Gleason Community Hall because it's beautiful now and they've done a phenomenal job of updating it, but accommodations would be a little more challenging.
And I suppose Clooney has Bazzano. It's probably closer than Strathmore, and there's a hotel there.
Other people's thoughts? Donna, did you want to make that into a motion or?
Ben Armstrong here. It matters not to me.
Okay.
I could make that into a motion that we choose that staff look into Rosebud Hall as number 1 and Cheadle Hall as number 2.
Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.1.3, Wheatland County Policy Restructure, starting on page 152 of our council package.
Yes, Council. Brian from administration. So administration, I think at the start of 2020, we had kind of established a committee to kind of go through our general policies. So we have staff members from different departments, which is actually a very good thing that we can do right now as well. Some of the policies are a little bit dated, so we're looking just to update them and kind of get a more consistent format just throughout our policies. So as you recall, we updated Section 6, the human resource policies, and staff felt that those were updated well and they're very easy to read and like useful for staff and public. So we wanted to kind of do the same thing with the general policies, Section 3. So in Section 3, there is multiple policies. So there's some finance policies, there's some donation policies, environmental policies. So kind of like a mixed bag almost in Section 3. So what administration is doing is just getting council's a council resolution behind just switching the sections up, just to make it more easy for council to find policies if they're ever looking for it, staff and public to find policies as well. So what this is the first kind of step of updating our just general policies. And the only thing that would really change is that we move section 2 would more be like finance policies as shown on page 155. Section 3 would turn into the agricultural and environmental policies. And then the general policies just themselves under section 3 would be removed entirely. We feel like it's a good idea just to kind of try to make our policies consistent as possible, just for transparency and usability. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about the restructure?
I'll move to accept as Ben Armstrong if there's no questions.
Councillor Armstrong has moved to approve. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.2.1, Corporate and Financial Services Report, starting on page 159 of our council package.
Yes, Council. So on page 159 is the Corporate and Financial Services Report. The biggest things out of corporate services this month were the financial statement audit being approved by Council at the April 21st meeting, the budgets being approved as well at that 21st meeting as well. Those have all been posted on our website for public viewing. Still in just trying to work with COVID-19 and just sanitary procedures, social distancing, working remotely. Things have been going fairly well. Definitely happy with the way things are going. One other thing to note too, just before the pandemic started, there was upgrading of rooms for the small committee room and large committee room at the administrative building. So those have been complete. They were about 75% complete prior to the office being closed. So the kind of final stages of that were being complete. Besides that, everything else is in the report. If there's any questions, I will be more than willing to answer. Thank you.
Any questions for Corporate and Financial Services? A motion to accept as information.
Councillor Eichert will so move.
Councillor Eichert has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.2.2, unaudited financial statements as of March 31st, 2020.
Yes, Council. So on page 162 is the RFP for the unaudited financial statements as of March 31st. Page 165 and 166 are kind of the information that has been presented. Similar positions to prior year. It is very early in the year. So what we usually do is we just divide the annual budget when appropriate by on a monthly basis and just kind of put that budgeted amount in. Nothing sticks out very oddly to administration. I think everything's pretty much as we anticipated. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions? A motion to accept as information.
Also move.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.2.3, Safety Administrative Directive Update.
Yes, Council. So on page 167 is the safety directive. So back in August of 2019, Council approved the rescindment of the safety policies. So section 10.1 to 14, with the stipulation that they'd be replaced with internal administrative directives. So these directives are very useful for staff. So instead of having to bring a policy update to council to update something that's most likely due to legislation or something that's pressing, we can now just update internally, and those directives are kind of floated to staff. So at that meeting as well, we committed to bringing back all the directives to council just after they're completed. So this is pretty much the end of the directives. There are a few more that administration are going to work on as well. But besides that, this concludes pretty much all the directives that we will be bringing back to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved, Clausen.
Deputy Rick Clausen has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.3.1, Community and Development Services Report, starting on page 189.
Amber, just jump in. I just have a question for Brian, and it's kind of out of the blue after we were talking about where to host all these things.
Sure.
Meeting. Has anybody, Matt might be able to answer as well, has anybody heard what's going to happen to the casino funds for all these associations? As we know, casinos aren't an essential service, but I know numerous community organizations that have lost their casino in the last 2 months, and for sure probably. So I'm just curious if you've heard anything. Maybe you have.
I have heard the question raised, particularly in response to, say, facility maintenance and kind of upkeep that may rely on those funds, even on, say, municipal-owned land, that type of thing. And so far, what I've heard from different cabinet ministers is that they are aware that it's a potential issue, but a solution has not been finalized, but that they are considering how best to deal with that.
Okay, perfect. Could you just keep us in the loop on that one? It's a big issue out here. So
many questions right now being poised at the provincial level are they're expressing that they're aware of the concern and that a solution is forthcoming, but there's not really a firm timeline yet or sort of direction around what that solution might look like. But that has been raised, and if I don't hear it continue to be raised, I'll note it to make sure that I'm kind of pressing that as well, because I know our egg societies and a lot of our community associations rely on those funds. So
I Clooney Hall Board and Clooney Lions lost both of theirs this April, so I'm just making sure everybody's aware. And if you keep on doing that, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Now we will move to Community and Development Services Report.
Good morning, Council and Madam Reeve. On page 189 of the agenda package is the Community and Development Services Report. Just higher level, all of the projects are continuing. Obviously, we've had to modify our schedules accordingly, as Council is well aware. Just some specifics for each division. For community services, obviously, Council knows that on March 27th, we closed the county playgrounds. We're continuing to monitor some of those campground issues as being communicated from the province, and will act accordingly. Moving to economic development, as Council is well aware, we've been hosting infinite WC business and regional business calls. So we've had great success from small, medium, and large business participation, council participation, member of parliament and MLA participation as well. So a lot of great ideas have been generated and good conversation as well. Moving down to planning, development, and safety codes, you can see the up-to-date, year-to-date to March actuals there. So really, there are no specific differences. I just want to emphasize that business is being conducted as usually as possible, considering how remote and digital we are processing these applications. But in a nutshell, all of the applicant meetings are continuing, and we're very happy with that as well as our constituents. In protective services, the salient note, obviously, on page 192, the COVID-19 virus pandemic created some new duties and issues for our protective services team. So our CPOs are acting accordingly, and we're keeping council abreast of any of the changes, and we will be bringing reports back if necessary regarding some new downloaded authorities to our CPOs. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Question to the
Any
chair.
questions?
Yeah, sorry, Ben Armstrong. Just a heads up on these closures of our municipal parks. We took a drive the other day on the weekend just for something to do outside the norm, and because of a question I had through a telephone call about Severn Dam and some garbage, so I went over there to have a look. But there was no garbage around it. It had all been cleaned up. It was very nice looking. But while we were doing it, we drove around there. Very nice, very well kept up. And there was three campers, families out there camping, and 4 vehicles with family members out fishing, and they were all well apart, well distanced around the dam, and enjoying themselves quite. It looked really, really nice to see them out there doing that. So when we're looking at closing these places, I'd take a second look at that. They were very, they looked like they're being very respectful of the property. They weren't hurting anything, and they certainly weren't throwing big parties. But I just thought it was great to see them out there using it.
Absolutely, that's a good point, Ben. And I think at this point, the only thing that we've closed is actual playground, like structural playground equipment. And that's just around concerns about how long the virus could potentially live on like that. And the province did indicate that they're doing like some rapid research on that question specifically, because of like the effects of solar and it being outdoors and that type of thing. So I do expect more information to be forthcoming on that shortly. But at this point, that's the only thing I believe, and administration, please correct me if I'm wrong, that we've actually closed. Other things we're just looking at, like ensuring that public health measures are being respected, and mainly through education, or solely through education was my impression, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, through the reeve to council, that's precisely it. We are acting in the best interest of the county in terms of health and safety and making the best determinations with obviously the very, very robust guidance of the province and everything that's being brought down from them. So, and any action we take, we advise council ahead of time. So that's pretty much it. So council's aware of all of the updates we've done in terms of the Parks and Recreation division of the county.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Matt, just to comment on the protective services and COVID measures. I've just got a few calls wondering if our peace officers are in town assisting the town peace officers with the overarching regulations that the town of Strathmore's putting in. I'd assume so, but I just want to confirm.
Just some clarity on the question. So are our peace officers working in coordination with the towns, or are they working within the jurisdiction of the town?
Coordination.
Yeah, our peace officers are coordinating every day with the town and some of the regional adjacent municipalities as well. So a lot of those efforts, a lot of coordination in terms of best practices, bouncing back and forth, are usually attended to from our senior peace officer. But I just want to emphasize it's the coordination of new, perhaps laws, legislation, or what have you that are being opened up for municipal peace officers, but it's just strictly coordination.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Community and Development Services? Hearing none, looking for a motion to accept as information.
So moved.
Councillor Armstrong has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to subdivision extension, page 196 of the council package, 4.3.2.
So good morning, Council. On page 196 of your agenda package is a request for decision regarding 3 subdivision extensions. At the beginning of the COVID-19 restrictions, the province obviously put together the ministerial order 022/20. I believe Council was circulated on that, which granted a series of time extensions to sections in the Municipal Government Act. So this included extensions to conditionally approved subdivisions where the expiry date was identified as October 1st, 2020. And I did previously circulate a memo to Council on this. And then we recently had 3 subdivisions impacted from this ministerial order. So SD 2016-17, so also known as Rosebud River Ridge, so ST 2016-20, aka Route 20. And it was SD 2019-10, which was a farmstead subdivision. So Municipal Affairs issued another ministerial order more recently on the 17th of April, and that was Ministerial Order 036/20, which rescinded the original Ministerial Order 022/20. So this means the aforementioned subdivisions that I just listed off, they no longer have time extensions up until October 1st. The applicants for these subdivisions were under the impression that they were granted the automatic extensions. So what we did as staff is bring forward the extension request to align with the previous ministerial order, which we are doing today. So we're proposing the following resolutions. So Council approved the subdivision time extensions request for conditionally approved subdivision applications as I listed above. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions regarding the subdivision extension? Just a comment, I think this was a good workaround. I know I've heard a lot of frustration through discussions with municipal affairs just about some of the frustrations around these changes to deadlines, and the ministry was quick to admit that there were some unintended consequences to the first order, and so they were trying to rectify that with the second order. It has been strongly expressed that municipalities would appreciate more sort of consultation with us when making these changes, and Municipal Affairs has indicated that the newest order obviously is in response to engagement with municipalities and concerns that municipalities have expressed. So I think we have to offer a little bit of grace as we're dealing with this, and the province is dealing with this dynamic situation and trying to do that in the best way. And I think this is a good workaround for our applicants just through the confusion of it. So I appreciate the work on this. Does anybody else have any other comments regarding it? If not, looking for a motion to approve the subdivision time extension requests.
I approve the subdivision time extension request for subdivision 2016-17, 2016-20, and 2019-10 to October 1st, 2020.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Is there any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to the 2020-2024 capital budget revision for the Speargrass Recreation Area project.
Madam Chairman and Council, Dave Rimes here. This project, I understand, was omitted from the 2020 budget, and it ended up being slated on the 2021 in the approved capital budget work. This project did come to Council for approval in July 16th of 2019. There was a full report on that project. So that's the end of my presentation. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions from Council? Just reallocating it from 2021 to the 2020 budget. Looking for a motion. Looking for a motion to approve.
Donna Bigger here. I move that council revise the 2020 to 2024 capital budget to reallocate the Speargrass Recreation Area project work from 2021 to 2020.
Councillor Bigger has moved to revise the capital budget. Are there any questions? Is any councillor opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. We'll move to 4.4.1, Transportation and Agriculture Report. Draw your attention to page 204 of our council package.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, on page 204 is the Transportation Ag GM report. Just some highlights from the last month here. The majority, actually all of the staff that are going to be operating this year have returned. We have the crews operating in different sections of the county. The last month we saw a few challenges with some flooding issues, primarily up in the Dallam and Rosebud area. We had quite a bit more snow up there, somewhat in the Carsland area as well. So we had some some washouts and some culvert failures here and there, but the majority of that has been repaired now. We're back to normal operations. Snow fence is brought down now, and we're on to patching and crack sealing of the roads. The crews for construction, they're starting on Range Road 245. That's kind of just finishing off our construction from last year, the last 3/4 of a mile, and they hope to have that done in the next 2 months here. We do have a very limited crew on that, or limited personnel on that crew as well. So we expect a little bit longer timeline to have that road finished. So flooding, and on the ag side, strychnine, we're actually distributing the last of the strychnine that we have today. As I mentioned before, the factory in India that creates the raw product was shut down and has still not reopened yet. So we don't anticipate that the company in Saskatchewan that makes this for us will be able to get back anytime in the near future to create this stuff. So we are still taking names, having farmers call in, and hopefully if we have the factory open up, we'll look at doing a fall distribution of any new product that we have brought in. So we're still taking names and still having people request it, but we're just filing them for now. So that's my presentation. If you have any other questions, you can definitely ask me.
Any questions for Transportation and Agriculture Department?
Yeah, Ben Armstrong. Mike, through the chair. Have you guys looked into that? I sent a couple of emails in on what's going on Range Road 175 north of 250 east of Duck Lake.
As far as road conditions, or?
No, there looks like there's some private landowners working on that road again. That 2 miles going north, and they've been in some of the low areas doing some work. I'm getting calls from some of the neighbors that they're wondering if that's our crews in there working on the road, or if it's. I think you and I know who it is, but I think you guys need to look into it and see what they're doing and why they're doing it, and if they're going to do work on there, they needed some kind of a road use agreement to be in there.
Right. If it is the landowners I'm thinking of, they did actually apply for a work and access agreement to build up some undeveloped road area, road allowances in there. We have insurance, we have approvals for them. So
okay, I'll let the landowner know that has been calling me, and I'll tell them that they have a road use agreement to do some work in there, and they've got the insurance and everything to cover off for liability.
Okay. Yeah, through the chair, I'll follow up with Brian to ensure that I still have the right location for that. Or,
yeah.
But we did have a request last week for that.
Yeah, when you find out, just send me an email and I'll forward it to the landowner.
Sure. Okay.
Good. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments?
Councillor, Under gravel roads, it says line bullet point number 2, waiting on budget regarding tender for 2020 sidewalk program. Did we get any information back from legal about whether or not we could get ratepayers to do that? Because I've got like 5 ratepayers in my area that could do sidewalks. That's their jobs, but because of insurance programs not belonging to CORE and that kind of stuff, they cannot bid it.
Right. Through the chair, there was a request and an opinion sent back from legal a few months ago. I believe I forwarded it to council. Basically, the understanding was, or the opinion was that it is not beneficial. It's not recommended, I should say, that we go outside of our normal processes by not requiring a safety program or CORE certification. That was legal's recommendation. I think as far as this tender, we have eliminated the 2020 sidewalk program from the budget. So this was just a follow-up finishing of the tender, but there's not going to be any action this year on actually doing, we have no budget for a sidewalk program in 2020. We did discuss with administration as far as going forward and maybe doing a smaller program next year just to attempt to bring some of the local contractors in and I mean, like you say, you're right. There's some risk to it, but that may be a bit acceptable risk. We're hoping to bring back a smaller program next year and potentially utilize some of the local contractors for that replacement or repair.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Hi, Mike. It's Glenn. That hole in the road on 263, are you aware of anybody getting hurt on it when it fell through, or was it just happened through the night and magically appeared? Nobody knew about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Through the chair, I got a call on Sunday morning about that failure. And actually, our crews were called out. It's still, as we all know, it's an Alberta Transportation maintained road. But our crew was called out very early in the morning on Sunday just to, I don't know if they couldn't get a hold of transportation or what, but we went out, we blocked off the road and we basically waited until transportation attended the scene. Volker came out. They've taken over from here. I haven't talked to anyone there, but I assume that they're going to be repairing it. And I have followed up because as a request from a number of months ago, we have consistently followed up with transportation on our concerns with that failure location and the potential for it to fail, which it obviously did on Sunday morning. So I haven't heard anything more from that. There's no follow-up or no damage claims being made right now. So I think it was just somebody driving by that happened to notice it.
Okay, lucky for them. I'm thinking there's another dip in the road in another location. All them culverts were put in at the same time, so there's no reason to believe that's the only rotten one. I went and looked, and you can't see any tin left. I'm sure it's all squished on the bottom. But these other one is a smaller one, but there's a dip in the road happening there too. So I'm thinking if we replace that one, the other one should be looked at too. Thanks for all your work on it. I know it's a thankless job, but somebody has to look after the public. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, a motion to accept the agriculture and transportation report as information.
I'll move. Glenn.
Councillor Kester has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Before we move into correspondence, I just would like to ask council if they would like to consider, and I cannot find a provision in our procedural bylaw for this, but to consider in addition to the agenda to ratify a letter that was sent to the province regarding golf courses. I'm not sure council's thoughts. I know it's a little bit moot because they are open, but it was an error that was not on the agenda to be ratified.
I'll move that if it's, I'm not sure what you require of me, but I will move that letter.
I guess it would be to add it to the agenda and then to approve. First, I think we would need council consensus to add it to the agenda because I neglected to do that earlier in the meeting at the beginning.
Councillor Eichert, I'll move to add that letter to the agenda.
Council discussion. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. And now perhaps a motion to consider ratifying the letter.
I'll move. Wilson moves to ratify the letter sent on which date? I'm trying to pull it up too. I'm in the middle of cooking too.
I'm not sure, but it would be in reference to the letter regarding reopening golf courses.
Yeah, that'll be the motion.
Council discussion.
I believe it was sent on April 23rd.
Thanks, Councillor Kester.
Okay. I know it's a moot point. It's a ratification. And I know at times this happens, that we have a ratification vote. I'm thinking in this case, why it was forgot. I went off a little bit on it. That's me. But I don't support the motion. I don't think it's in our preview. I know I'm in the minority, but I have to oppose it. I know it's mute now that it's sent, but I just wanted on the record that I was opposed.
Yeah, and I'll share my concerns that I had with it. I was just hesitant to think that we as a municipal council understood the situation better than the team of medical professionals that our provincial government is relying on to advise on decisions like this. And I agree that golf can be done with physical distancing more than many other activities, but I did have some practical questions like around washroom facilities and like the parks, I could foresee people flooding golf courses and there being issues with what would normally be a very safe activity. Recognizing that there was significant lobbying by professionals in the golf industry. So the government would be aware of sort of all of the measures that they were willing to take to ensure public health orders were followed. And then I just had that question around justifying golf courses as essential. But we certainly had heard majority support from council in sending the letter. So I am at the will of council, the majority of council.
It's Donna Bigger here. I approved the letter. I thought when it went through email, I liked the letter because it actually showed I got a lot of requests from ratepayers. Of course, I live on a golf course, so I probably got more than most. But it also showed support for the industry and support for our business, our local business. And that's why I approved I like the idea of the letter.
Absolutely.
I supported the idea of the letter. All surrounding provinces and states, not a territory, but both BC and Saskatchewan and Montana and even say the Dakotas and Idaho all had their golf courses open, which So I agree with Amber. We don't know everything about the situation. I would also say that not all provincial direction is the best. When there's surrounding areas doing it, I think we should relook at the idea. And I'm glad we did, and then glad with the that was had.
My apologies. Margaret, do we have a motion on the floor to ratify the letter?
Yes,
Yeah,
Or does it?
Steve Link, we do. It was moved by Councillor Wilson to
Perfect.
ratify
Sorry.
the letter to the Premier.
My apologies. I hadn't made my usual note. So thank you for that. Is there any further discussion? There is a motion on the floor. I'll call for any councillor who is opposed.
I'm opposed.
We'll do
Glenn.
a roll call vote just for clarity. Reeve Link will vote in favor. Deputy Reeve Clausen,
In favor.
Councillor Wilson,
in favor.
Councillor Bigger,
In favor.
Councillor Eichert, Councillor Eichert, I'm not sure if you're possibly muted.
Well, can you hear me? I am in favor.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Kester
Okay.
Opposed.
and Councillor Armstrong.
Favor.
Motion is carried. Thank you for that allowance to add that. We'll now move to 5.1, correspondence, which starts on page 208 of our council package. And there are two items, there's three items. Correspondence from SEWA, a briefing update. I don't believe that requires any action. There is an correspondence from the Alberta chapter of APWA, the American Public Works Association. Actually, it might be Alberta, the Alberta chapter, regarding declaring National Public Works Week, which is typically recognized May 17th to 23rd. I would like council to consider proclaiming that in recognition of the work that our public works does. There is a sample proclamation included in the package. And as well, there's correspondence from Reeve Whitstock with Kneehill County regarding our IDP. And I did have an opportunity to chat with Reeve Whitstock as well regarding that. And basically, he reiterated what is in this letter. I just asked him to send a letter so that council can formally consider what we're going to do. They do not feel, they would prefer, they will not reconvene their intermunicipal committee to discuss further amendments. So Development Services, GM, Matthew Buscariel did circulate our options as a council. So let's start with the Public Works. Looking for a motion to proclaim May 17th to 23rd, the Rhythm of Public Works. Designate that week as National Public Works Week. They had some, Councillor Bigger has moved, they had some recommendations around things like parades or equipment, kind of displays or things like that. I think given some of the parameters around the public health measures that we might be a little bit limited in how we recognize it, but I think even just the proclamation and maybe some media recognition of the work that, the important work that our crews do in our municipality. They really are the backbone of Wheatland County, and I'm very grateful for the work they do. So I don't know if council has any other ideas of ways that we could, some of the things that they had suggested in their letter were high school essay contests, open houses, programs, parades, things like that. Open to council discussion. There is a motion on the floor. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. I'm pleased to proclaim May 17th to 23rd as National Public Works Week. And I would urge all citizens to join with representatives in paying tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Thank you. And if we could turn our attention to the correspondence from Nehill. So basically, what GM Boscariel had outlined was we have two choices. We could bring back the IDP for third reading and wait for the review period, which is written into the IDP to be done informally annually with a formal review every decade. Alternatively, we would have to go through the Municipal Government Board. Looking for council's wishes.
Hi, Scott here. I'd prefer not to go through the MGB, if at all possible.
Hello, it's Glenn here. Every time we had a public hearing on this issue, we had the same comments, not had any comments the other way. I know we went and we had a committee meeting, and it wasn't looked upon favorably by Nehill to change it. Basically, all they're asking for is an additional notification process, being that the impact is so great. This has been Nehill's mode of operation ever since that application went in. There's a part of me saying, go to the MGB. There's another part of me saying, what are we going to do with our relationship with our neighbors? But more importantly, too, it's our wishes of our ratepayers. The ratepayers went through considerable effort, and there's a lot of them there. I just know he says in the letter that it's a living document and there's scheduled review and changes can be made. Why not make the changes now? Chances of changing it, probably wait till it's a moot point. I don't know what to do. I'm at the will of council. I've been maybe too personally involved in this, and I'll just defer it to council, make a decision.
So when I was speaking with Reeve Whitstock, part of his concern was that kind of the gravity of the requested changes, and this is just from our conversation, I wasn't at the committee meeting, the importance or gravity of the changes he didn't feel were communicated by our council representatives on the committee. And now he feels like they are so far through the process because they've approved it. He said they are not interested in reopening it and you know, having to do another public hearing and all of those types of things to bring forward a new draft. So it is a tough decision, and I agree there's the dual factors, the importance of our ratepayer concerns and our relationship with Kneehill County. And
okay. Yeah, just to add to that, if they weren't conveyed to them at our committee meeting, because our public hearing was after the committee meeting. They knew, we talked about that at the committee meeting, but just briefly, because that's the settlement that was at the open house, and it wasn't included. It was reiterated again at our public hearing, and Kneehill County chose to do third reading before we had our public hearing done.
Yes,
they knew our public hearing was not done, and they just went ahead and they did third reading. Didn't think that there would be any changes. Like I said, it's a long history. All we're asking for is to be notified. We're not asking them that Wheatland County has a decision-making role. We just know it's notified. Take notification that we're going to do this or do that, or approve this, it's coming to a council meeting. Some of them meetings that they approve for that development could have quite an effect on our infrastructure. Environment, yeah, but they could affect our roads and infrastructure. That's all we were asking for, is to be informed. But if it impacts, we can always go back to the MGB and do a 560 or 561. We've done it before. We've won it. It's a sad thing to say, but even if we'd had these changes made, they can still go and do what they want to do, and we still can appeal to the MGB. So it's just, for me, a good neighbor policy. And to belabor the fact for notification, I just wonder if it's all worth it in the end.
So through the chair, Ben Armstrong, my comments would be mirrored some of what's already been said, but this document, as far as I'm concerned, is just an agreement to work together. It doesn't tie anybody to anything. We can't dictate to Kneehill, Starland. We can't dictate to another municipality what they can do. All we can do is ask. We've asked, and as Glenn said, we've been to the government and we've won a couple. And on this process, we've listened to the ratepayers. We've done what they've asked us to, and we've taken it, I think, as far as we can. The ratepayers have done what they made their presentations to Kneehill. They've made their presentations to us. They've done their due diligence to try and make the changes. But I think at the end of the game, it's like Glenn said, we can push this cart as far as we want, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere with it. Kneehill had the right to do it. They did it. We could fight it. If we win it, what's going to happen? Probably nothing. So I think we just relay to our ratepayers that yes, we've voiced your opinions, we've pushed it, we've put your concerns out there, and Kneehill has done what they've done according to their process. They haven't done anything illegal. They may have pushed it a little sooner than they might have, but they haven't done anything illegal. So I think we've done what we've needed to do. This document is, like Glenn said, it's a living document. It can be changed next year. If another development comes forward, this document's in place. There was no document in place when this all started, so things happened without any consultation. If it happens again with this document being in place, then yeah, now there's a process for them to follow, for us to follow. I look at it, if it was on the role was reversed and it was another municipality coming at us like we were we're going at knee hill on our for our ratepayers. I wonder which way we would go with it. I'm fine with the document the way it is, and we did discuss it at committee, up the last one being up at knee hill, and as committee members, we agreed on everything that was in there. True, it was before the public had some input on our side, but we agreed that it's a living document and it doesn't. Anyways, I'm fine with it the way it is.
Councillor Eichert, I mirror Ben's sentiments. I really don't want to get into we may not agree with everything our neighbors do, but I don't think this is something to go to war over. So I think we just leave it the way it is.
Other council perspectives?
Wilson agrees with that.
Yeah, Donna Bigger here. I feel the same way. I don't want to go to war over anything, right? Like it's like good for a year, so it's a living document, like Ben said.
I think it would be good. I can agree with that. I'm not sure of our odds of success either with an MGB review, because really what we were requesting is over and above what would be required through the MGA. I would hope that would still be advocated for to be included as the document is reviewed. I think we need to keep in mind that the IDP is kind of the highest overarching statutory document that we are bound by. So it does have some weight in terms of if there are terms agreed to within that document that we are bound by those terms. So I think it would still be good to strive towards that, but I do agree that I'm not sure that like a long, drawn out, expensive MGB kind of appeal would be worth it. But I do think working collaboratively to see how we can address some of those concerns as that document is, like, as we use it too, and as we go through different proposals. So
just one more comment. This is a collaborative agreement, IDPs. We agreed to collaborate. And that's what our changes were, was basically, we're to collaborate for notification. To me, it seems ironic when you look at it from my perspective. That's all we're basically asking for, was to collaborate. And we're doing a document up on collaboration.
So I'm not sure if administration can advise whether or not we need a motion for this, or if just administration will bring back third reading. It sounds like there's consensus. I know we haven't voted, but it sounds like there's some consensus. Would you prefer a motion?
Just through the reef to council. No, we don't need a motion to bring back third reading. It's just waiting. So if there's consensus, we will bring back third reading.
Is everybody all right with that? Obviously, we can further debate this when for third reading comes to council for decision. It sounds like there's consensus for that. So then I'm just looking for a motion to accept the correspondence as information.
So moved.
So moved.
I think I heard Councillor Armstrong first. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. I believe that concludes our agenda except for our closed session items. Before I move us in camera, I would just ask that each counselor affirm that you are in a private setting where you will be the only person able to access confidential information in order to uphold our counselor code of conduct. And we will do a roll call affirmation of that prior to moving in camera. Reeve Link affirms that I'm in a private location. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Yes, I'm all alone.
Councillor Wilson.
Me, myself, and I.
Councillor Bigger.
Yep.
Good. Councillor Eichert.
As I'm eating, as we do this, I have 2 dogs with me, but other than that, I'm alone.
Councillor, are they trustworthy dogs though?
I trust them with my life.
Councillor Kester.
I affirm.
Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, I'm in a secure location.
Excellent. I will move council in camera. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
Council.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to mention that I'm going to just send the dial-in information shortly, or within a minute or so.
Excellent. Thank you. Maybe we'll take just a 10-minute break. Can we reconvene at 1:45?
Sure.
Sounds good.
And thank you. Council has moved out of closed session. We do have 2 resolutions arising from our closed session.
I'll go first. Wilson moves that council approve the contract release payment to NIB Developments Limited in the amount of $170,792.07, inclusive of GST, for hard costs and loss of profit. Further, that this payment constitutes a full and final settlement and release of the county in this matter.
Council questions or comments? There's a motion on the floor.
Listen here, I can't support it. I have no problem paying for hard costs. That's all I'll say.
Okay, so we do have some opposition, so we will do a roll call vote on the motion. Is there any further discussion before I call the vote? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Reeve Link is in favor of the motion. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Opposed.
Councillor Wilson.
In favor.
Councillor Bigger.
In favor.
Councillor Eichert.
In favor.
Councillor Kester.
In favor.
And I understand that Councillor Armstrong had another commitment that arose. Motion is carried. There's a second resolution arising from our closed session.
Yes, Donna Bigger. I'd like to move that the Wheatland County Council approve revisions to the organizational chart, section 1.6 of the organizational policies and the pay structure, section 6.2.1 of the human resources policies.
Council discussion, questions? Is any councillor opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. I believe that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda. A motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Councillor Eichert moves.
Councillor Wilson was first, I think. Is any counselor opposed? Motion is carried. Thanks for everybody's participation. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.